better take me up to that apartment that you clearly cannot afford being a mailroom clerk. And even though I left my boyfriend in the big city just to come back here to my hometown and milk cows, you better sit me on the couch, cause you know what happens next. We about to watch a rom-com. I don't need no wine and dine, I want something high class. Like spending my nights at home, romancing the podcast. Take a deeper dive into these movies that are trash. Meet once in a bookstore and then we'll smash. Roll call. Todd. Paige. The other guy. Oh yeah, Mikey.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
I'm Mikey Randolph.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week, Paige made us watch
The
Photograph. So, Paige, why did you pick this movie and have you seen it before?
I had not. I pulled a Todd. And I read the synopsis and thought it was going to go one way, and it very much did not go that way.
Really? I called this movie 7 minutes and 40 seconds into it.
Oh, no. 7 minutes into the movie, I figured out what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But in reading the synopsis, I thought it was kind of going to be a little different. But I wanted to pick something current, because everything we've done is 10 years or more older, for the most part, with the exception of What Men Want, which was kind of pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, what's something that is like the most new or whatever? And synopsis sounded interesting. I think one of the biggest problems with this movie, aside from some pacing for sure, is that they have one love story that is super interesting and intricate and is basically The Notebook with some changes.
Without the murder-suicide at the end.
Without the murder-suicide at the end.
Which is the best part.
I mean, but then they try to equate that to a modern love story that I don't think they really had figured out. And so they're trying to place them on equal footing. And I think the modern story is struggling and not really as captivating as the previous one. And I thought in reading the synopsis that they were going to like back and forth it the whole time. So we were kind of seeing the past story as we're seeing the modern story walking those same steps.
And it sort of sets that up in the beginning of this movie, too, because, Paige, I had that exact thought. I didn't read the synopsis, obviously, but I feel like what you're describing is what the first maybe half of the movie was, and then it changes.
Right. And the last, 20 minutes of the movie where they go to New Orleans, what I really wanted was to see that intercut with the past version also going to New Orleans. And I think the movie felt like she needed to know the whole backstory before she went to New Orleans. And I think that ruins the pacing of the movie a little bit.
Well, see, Paige, the weird thing is, I think she did know the entire backstory, but they didn't show that to us.
Right.
Because she had read that letter multiple times. I understand why she went to New Orleans when she did, in the movie. It made sense to me, but I wish we had known more about what was going to happen in New Orleans.
Well, and I had kind of predicted it way early. The second we see in the past that her mom sleeps with him, I was like, oh, she's his daughter. You just immediately
100%.
know. But then the movie treats it like you couldn't math for 30 minutes. And I'm just like, no. We have all seen a million movies that are this.
Besides okay, I have some thematic critiques.
Yeah, the themes are all over the place in this movie a bit.
I think it's beautifully... I like the soundtrack.
Gorgeous.
Mikey, I wrote 2 notes for this entire movie, and the first one is, and I'll read it verbatim. Hang on, let me get my notes app. It says, the top to bottom smooth jazz in this movie is so fucking good.
It's beautiful.
The problem with that is that there's more emotion in the smooth jazz than there are than the actors on screen.
Yeah.
And it made me feel like all of these characters, their mood stabilizers are too of high dosage, and we've got to bring them down to feel more, because it's like, you're actually my dad. Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think anyone said nice.
Okay, cool. Aren't you mad that mom didn't tell me? No, that makes sense.
No, I should have asked.
Yeah. I was like, and then she's like, then the daughter, May, is like, I should have told him I didn't want him to move. It's on me to make him not move. And I'm like, what? Or they meet up and it's supposed to be like this high electricity romance, and he's like,
But it's just not there. The chemistry is just not there.
he's like, I'm gonna mumble about this, and she's like, hi, and he's like, blah blah blah, and then our cut to his job, and he's like, I got another job, and I'm like, oh, he's excited. I'm excited about it, and I was like,
I feel like Mikey's Lakeith Stanfield impression is exactly the same as Mikey's Sylvester Stallone impression, and I'm here for it.
It's not far off. And here's the thing. I love me some Lakeith Stanfield.
I do too.
Me too.
Just not in this movie.
And the actress who plays May
Issa Rae is amazing.
So expressive, and her show on HBO
Yes, it's so good.
is so good. And then like she is so much constrained in this role. I was like, what is the director trying to say? Like, the more people act like photographs, the better the movie will be.
I think it's trying to kind of like Sins of the Father, kind of, where she's trying to not make the same mistake her mom did. Like,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing.
The themes are serious. The
Yeah, they're
feelings they
very
feel
serious.
are very muted.
Yes, I feel like her mom in the past, aside from when in the future when everything comes to roost, everyone being really muted, I understood her mom's story in the past, and I thought that emotionally worked for me.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, I cried a lot at the
I
like the
sobbed.
80s love story, if we'll call it that, like the parents'
Yes.
love story. Like, man, when she comes back and like it's like May is his daughter and they're just
Yes.
not saying it the whole time, and,
And
she's
she's
like,
just
don't
like
get out of the
quietly
car.
sobbing in the bus
Fuck.
depot. No, I feel you.
Yeah, Paige.
Yes, that half of the movie
That shit works.
aggressively works
Yes,
for me.
But
agreed.
that
It's-
makes the other part worse in contrast.
Yes, it makes it stand out. And I think it is just the chemistry's not there.
I think so too.
It's not just the chemistry. The characters do not react to these situations like humans do.
I mean, there's that, but
Not even remotely close. Like, she's reading the letter. Like, they're not allowed to be fully expressive in a way it sets up a lot of these characters would be. These are very serious, very emotional situations, and they're all very muted about every single one of them.
I think they're trying to display them as not being able to convey their emotions well, but in doing so, it makes it difficult to watch.
It makes it seem like they just don't experience the emotion at all.
Anything. Yeah.
Like, because I think I cried more in this movie than anyone on screen did.
or at least in the modern portions.
Well,
yes.
yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I was only crying during like the 80s love story.
Yeah, I think there's the element of them trying to play close to the vest, but we're not actually seeing them experience the emotions and just not share them. We're just not seeing it all because we're not really
Yeah.
getting people alone ever.
Most movies show them be muted to each other and then like drive away crying
And
or,
then
like,
cry at home, yeah.
Without those scenes, are like, you're like,
It doesn't make sense, yeah.
these robots are gonna break up.
That actually is a good observation, because if I had seen that, I would have been like, oh, they actually are feeling it. They just have trouble expressing it in front of other people.
Well, they keep talking about how they have trouble expressing it. So, like,
Yeah.
verbally, Exposition Bot has told us, but, like, we're not seeing them actually experience the emotions. And then on top of that, like, we're not seeing them connect. They go on 3 total dates before she's like, I guess I should fly to London. And, like, nothing in those 3 dates has made me think, like, these people have that lasting love that you should fight for. As opposed to in the past, we know that they spend a ton of time together. He
Yeah.
builds her that dark room. Like, there's all these things in the previous love story that's like, yeah, you two should have fucking fought for each other.
Yeah.
And then in the modern one, they're like, we should fight for each other. And I was like, should you?
Even when they have sex, there are blank stares at each other.
That is true. Although it was a very hot sex scene that went on for a long time.
Just minimum movement and stares.
Is that not how it's done? Hang on. Wait, how do you guys do it?
Oh, Todd, this reminds me. This is not related to the movie at all. I just need to bring it up because it is like current. One of your people.
Why are they my people?
You'll get it in a second. No one should ever have sex in a house where kids are. And then it was
that
just
happens
like,
in this movie.
I know that happens in this movie, but like literally on Twitter was like, grown-ups should, like, parents should never have sex while their children are in their house.
In their
Full
house?
stop. Yes.
That's crazy.
Oh,
That
is
was
Todd's
your
side of the
stance
argument.
in Orphan.
No, it wasn't. Please go back and feel free to listen to it. My stance was you shouldn't fuck in your kitchen while your kid's down the hall in an unlocked bedroom. That's very different than they shouldn't fuck in the house at all.
But this is more emotion than I've experienced for the last 2 hours.
That's true. That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
You guys are crying this movie? I was like, I'm too thrown off by the other story to get into the other one.
The past story, the story in the 80s,
It really
was
got me.
crushing my soul. It really got me.
The movie would have worked better if you took the modern romance out of it and just had the girl discovering what her mom was about.
Yes, and I would have sobbed so much.
It would have worked way better for me. And it just, I didn't want to hate it. I didn't want to hate it. But I don't know. I needed more today from a film. I wasn't in a depressed mood and I was like, this is kind of bringing me down.
I didn't hate it, but I do think you're right. I feel like they're trying to contrast the romances, and that's where it breaks down. Whereas, like, one of them really, really works. And if the focus had just been on that one, that's what I'm going with.
And I would be pissed if no one told me I had a daughter out there. And that guy should be pissed a little bit.
I think he was. I think he'd worked through it.
I think he also knew and then didn't ask and blamed himself, which is, not necessarily accurate for what happened, but I think that's what happened, and that's where he placed a lot of that emotion.
I mean, Paige, he could have asked in that moment, hey, is she mine?
Yeah. Well, that's what he says.
But he didn't.
He even talks about it, and he didn't. And so, like, that takes place, like, his dealing with that takes place off screen also. But I feel like what they do show us on screen for that interaction, because he's like looking at her, like he clearly suspects or whatever. When he said that kind of made sense to me.
Yeah.
And it's been 30 years,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So, like, I get that maybe you wouldn't be as upset after 30 years, but, like, I would probably run to somebody crying. Like 30 years later, whatever it is.
Instead, May's like, you're my dad.
And he's like, yeah, I thought I was your dad.
You want to boil some crabs?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
I think boiled crab is his love language. And you know what? It's a solid love language.
I do love how when Lakeith Stanfield first meets him, he's like, do you want some boiled crab? And he's like, no, I ate on the plane. And he's like, that is the wrong answer whenever someone asks you that. And then at the end of the movie, when he's like, do you want boiled crab to his daughter? May's like, yeah. I want him to be like, that's the correct answer.
That's correct.
Just to like button hook that moment from the beginning of it. But I'll be honest with you, the 80s love story to me in this is worth watching this movie for, because
I'm with you.
You will see how losing your mother and discovering that she had a long lost lifetime love that she ran away from to pursue her ambitions, nothing wrong with that, but ran away from and regretted not reconnecting at some point in her life when she was more successful and had achieved what she had achieved.
Right.
Like a daughter coming to that realization right after losing her mother gaslit her into flying across the world to like, hey, I want to give this relationship that's 3 days old and doesn't have a lot of spark a try.
Yeah,
We
well,
call it projection.
That honestly makes sense to me. Her mom died a month ago. She is fiercely in grief. Like, she's making all kinds of bad decisions.
It complicated grief because she did not like her mom. They didn't have a good relationship.
They had certainly a complex relationship. Yeah, we don't really see a whole lot of it, to be honest with you.
Complicated grief is complicated. That's why they call it that. Like there's relief when people die if you're a caregiver. There's like emotions that make you feel guilty for feeling them. There's all sorts of humanity stuff. But I mean, I don't think the backstory forgives a mom for being not a good mother. It doesn't really say that, but I mean, like you can't yada 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 out of like not being there for your daughter or whatever, if that makes sense.
Well, but that's the thing. It's like the movie even doesn't say that she wasn't there necessarily. Like, there are some things that she was like, she stayed home and cried instead of going to this thing. So she felt it, you just didn't see it. But it seems like she is there. She is just working. So like, she's around, she's just not giving the attention.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things in this movie that she basically, at the beginning of the movie, she basically argues that she doesn't think her mother was capable of love. And then this story proves that she was, but was bad at it.
Yeah. And that she loved in her own way. And it was difficult for her. And it was something that she wished she was better at. Like, I honestly really love the 80s story. And like,
I know.
honestly feel a lot of like, man, like a lot of, you have those at our age. You like have those moments in your life where you fucked up and you regret it. Maybe you don't want to go back to it or whatever, or even want to reach out to that person anymore, but you like regret saying things you said or ending things a certain way. So I like really felt for that sort of timeline.
I mean, she ghosted that guy.
She did. Like, I'm not saying what she did was right. No one says that, like she fully ghosted that dude and paid for it. Like that's the whole thing is like, she could love people, but she didn't tell them when she should have.
And when she sort of needed them, like she could have used some help, I'm sure, raising May.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, we do find out that she met Courtney B. Vance when she was like 3 months pregnant with May.
3 months pregnant. So they were already together when she went back.
Yeah.
Honestly, jackpot. Courtney B. Vance,
Jackpot
great
indeed.
catch, right?
Always.
Love that man.
Always.
But yeah, I sort of like this movie. I definitely think there are pacing issues, and I don't think there's enough chemistry for me to justify like thinking May should move. Although I guess that's not like really the way the movie ends. The movie ends just them like, I know this isn't practical, but we're going to try and figure it out, which means that they visit each other for 4 months and then they break up.
Yeah.
But I really think this movie is about how a mother's tragic story and life coming to an end, how that made her daughter make a bad decision in her next relationship. Like, this is something she'll talk about in therapy in 4 years.
See, if I was rewriting this, keep the backstory the same, keep the 80s version, all that the same.
Yeah, because it's great.
But have this happen when May has just broken up with somebody.
Yeah.
And it's her and that person deciding to get back together. Like, that to me is more powerful than the new relationship version where they only have 3 dates and then she flies to London.
Yeah. Like, so for me to fix it, what I would have liked to have seen out of this movie from the, let's call it the present day storyline, is it starts the same way. Like, Keith Stanfield gets on the case, if you will, and discovers the girl. But that section is way longer, not like in the movie, but it doesn't take place over a month. It takes place over a year. And he writes the story about Katrina in New Orleans or whatever, or sorry, the oil spill that happened in New Orleans, right? And then he goes back and talks to her dad more, and then this whole thing comes out about them, and then something separates them, and he's the one that goes to her after writing a story about their story that they've learned, like from the past timeline. I think if there was more of them together and they had more chemistry, I would have bought that story more. I think it's because it's only a month. They go on 3 dates. They have sex once. Like, come on. I'm not going to move across the world for...
Especially for someone that you don't seem to have much chemistry with, who doesn't call you back.
Right?
And seems to be bad with follow through in general.
I thought when he goes to interview the dad again and she comes out the door, I was like, oh, they're going to fight. But instead it's like...
I thought so too.
And then instead, it's just like saying, I'm your daughter. Oh, you're here. I should have known you'd been here. And I was like, should you have?
And also, how would you have known to have?
And I'm going to tell you about every fight I've ever been in with someone who I've dated. It doesn't start with, well, I did call you to tell you first, and then end there. Like, that's not the whole fight. That's the starting jump off part of I'm about to get belittled because I did not call her back. And I'm interviewing her dad, who did not know he was her dad.
Right.
That's a big discussion.
Yeah.
No,
instead,
agreed.
it's like,
yeah.
Let's all just like, listen to smooth jazz and put some butter on those crabs.
Yeah, that's true. I would have read somebody the riot act over that. for
Right,
being like,
exactly.
wait.
Maybe if you would have called me back, you would have known that this is my father and I've been here for a week. Where the fuck have you been?
I might have also, now here's, not to play devil's advocate, I would have also texted in addition to calling, because I am more of a text than a call person. But if I had like texted you like, hey, I have something really important to tell you, like, can we call, or something, whatever, and then like you never responded, I'd be like, oh, so this is over then. Like,
That's what I would have, after a week, Paige? That's exactly what I would assume too. Like,
yeah, I was like, did you die? Oh, I broke up with somebody for not answering a text after a week.
give me the tea.
Okay, so here's what happened.
I have some date stories now.
Hell yeah.
We briefly had matched on a dating site and had been trying to like coordinate, like, okay, we'll go grab coffee, like something, whatever. But we'd been talking for like a few weeks. And then all of a sudden, nothing, just gone.
Right.
Complete, like off the face of the planet. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is over.
Paige, he had to go interview your real father in New Orleans.
Nope. Worse. And mind you, I was 26 or 7 at the time.
Too old for that.
Way too old for that.
I think everyone's too old for that. A week? You're not going to talk to me for a week?
So I was like, oh, so this is just over. And I don't give a fuck, because clearly I don't want to be with somebody who's going to just disappear for a week.
For a week?
Right. So then a week later, he texts back as if nothing has happened, as if there wasn't a week in between. He's like, so when are we going to go out for that coffee? I was like, a week ago, before you fucking disappeared for a week. And he was like, my mom took my phone.
For 10,080 minutes, your mother had your phone? You can eat every inch of my dick, sir. I am not going to coffee with you.
Oh no, Todd, he lives with his mom. and she got mad, and that was how she decided to ground a 27-year-old man. And so I was like, oh yeah, then aggressively, no. like it was no when you ditched me for a week, but it's double no after I've heard the reason.
Now, Paige, are you sure it was a 27-year-old man and not two number 7s in an oversized trench coat? Like, what the? His mother took his phone for a week? Either he's the world's worst liar, or that's a troubling situation you don't want to get involved with.
Here's the thing. Here's what's sad. It's a troubling situation. I know it was true. I knew he lived at home because, hey, Los Angeles fucking expensive.
Yeah.
I whatever. And he was living at home because he had dreams of becoming a luchador. And
Paige.
hey, I'm not saying it was a big loss.
I have so many questions.
Do
wait,
you?
you never met up with them. Never mind. I was like,
No, we never
did
met
you
up.
use the cape? But no, you
No,
wouldn't
of
have had
course
time.
not.
Yeah.
But he did send me pictures of his masks at one point. I don't still have them. That was like 3 phones ago. But like he was like, I guess minor leagues.
There's sometimes I forget to text somebody back for a few days.
How long is a few? Like 2 to 3, I can be like, hey, this is kind of inconsiderate, but I get it, or
No,
whatever.
I mean, but that needs to be kind of a realization moment for me that maybe I'm not feeling strong feelings if I can go
Yes,
many
that's the
days
point.
without
Yeah.
wanting to communicate.
Completely agree. Like, if you're gonna like leave someone on read for a week, you don't really care
Yeah.
about seeing that person that much, and that person should honestly move on and find someone that's excited to see them.
It was not on red. It was delivered. I fully thought this dude just fucking died, but whatever. But like, it's different with like friends. Like, I talked to my friend today that I haven't talked to for like a week and a half. And before that, it was like a couple months or whatever, because lives are busy.
Yeah, no,
but if
I
it's a
get
romantic partner,
Yes.
I'm expecting to talk to you most days, most of the time.
Yeah, and it sounds like you had been up to that point. Like you had talked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah. Daily, then just like gone. And I was like, man, maybe another luchador got him.
I mean, I get tied up into work stuff.
your work shit's different. If she had showed,
Yeah.
if when Lakeith Stanfield showed up and she was like, "Why didn't you call me for a week?" and he was like, "I was running a hostage situation for a week," she'd have been like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" So it's a different situation, Mikey.
Or she wouldn't have believed me and sent that really long text saying, not believing me.
that was honestly a very good story.
That was very funny. But here's the thing, like 2 days, whatever,
Sure.
shit happens.
Yeah.
3, I'm going to be a little annoyed, but again, shit happens. A week? No, we're broken up now.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what level we were before. We are now broken up.
Yeah, and I don't even think they were like boyfriend and girlfriend. They had spent like 2 dates together and had slept together once. Like, that is, forgive me for saying this, Mom, that's not boyfriend and girlfriend material. That's like someone you hooked up with once.
Yeah.
So I've got to tell a dating story.
Mikey, yes, you do have to tell a dating story. Let's do it.
This is not the girl who was raised in a cult.
I'm assuming it was more recent than that.
Yes, this is the last couple weeks. We've
Yeah.
gone out, very nice, very initial attraction. We kissed. It was,
Did you feel the sparks?
yeah, Sparkies. Yeah,
Yeah,
potential.
good. Okay, cool.
And then we went to play trivia on the second date. We wanted to do something like activity wise.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Activities first 2 dates is my
Yeah,
thing.
I
of
think
like,
that's honestly great because sometimes at trivia, your date might know a little bit too much about the southern side of the Civil War. Is that what happened, Mikey?
No.
Okay.
It's kind of an unfortunate circumstances.
Please don't tell me she got hit by a car crossing a street or something like that.
Oh, that was trivia related. So she's like, I need to tell you though, I'm really bad at trivia. And I was like, well, no, it's that bad. Everybody has their categories that they know stuff in.
Right.
She was really bad at trivia. I mean,
Oh, Mikey. That doesn't mean she's not smart, though.
no, of course it doesn't mean it. And also, they were moving at a very fast pace. So it was like a high pressure kind of trivia situation.
Oh, Mikey doesn't fuck around with that lowbrow trivia. He takes people to
I was not expecting
bougie
it.
trivia.
No, it was like trivia starts at 7, but then the restaurant closes at 8. So they were going through 8 rounds of trivia in an hour
Damn.
while you're eating. And I was like, what is happening? This is not
what
okay.
kind of restaurant closes at 8?
Did you take her to a Cracker Barrel trivia night? What the shit?
No, it's in the Gulch.
They close at 8 in the Gulch?
Yes. Anyway, so I was picking, as you pick on each other sometimes in a date situation.
Oh, Mikey, no. Not when she is self-conscious about appearing stupid in front of this guy she's into.
Okay, so.
Oh, man, Mikey, I know already this is your fault.
Mikey, you've told us like 4 different stories where you attempted to playfully pick on someone and it went bad. When are you going to learn?
To not be myself.
No, to just like feel it out a little bit longer to see how mean you can be to people.
I get it from you guys, first off.
Oh, I
right.
learned from watching you. He just did that to us.
Yeah, mom and dad. So I was like, okay, we're like doing terrible, and it's like jokey, and we're like picking on each other. It wasn't just a one way.
Okay.
And it was like, we like bombed this whole category, and I was like, what do you bring into the trivia table? I was like, what do you?
Oh, Mikey, no.
And I knew immediately, because it was like we were the modern love story in this movie, where it was just the emotions died.
You went from the 80s love story to the modern love story immediately. So much chemistry, so much passion to nothing.
Yeah. And like I knew it, so I didn't know. Like I apologized. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was just like picking."
So what you're saying, Mikey, is you guys had kissed before this.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm assuming that didn't happen again at the end of the second date.
No, that still happened.
Way to rally, Mikey.
I had a good time.
Not that well, clearly.
Well, I knew pretty quickly that like, okay, so that went too far or whatever.
Yeah.
And like she continuously brought it up throughout the rest of the date.
Yeah.
Wait, did you not apologize in the moment?
Yeah. I was like, I'm just playing.
No,
Did
no,
you
I
say
mean,
I'm
legitimately-
sorry?
Yes, like,
No, I didn't know it was
legitimately,
that big.
I can see that this upset you. That was not my intention. I was
Right.
trying to be funny, but it went too far.
I didn't see that it was like upsetting her until like 45 minutes later, where it was like she brought it up again. And I was like, oh, I'm
then
sorry. I was
still
just.
do it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, then I apologized. But then like the third time she brought it up, I was like, this is not good.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And not that I was like, I wasn't like super into it, and I don't think she was either. But it was just like she was like, I think that joke kind of triggered some stuff that happened to me in the past.
Sure.
And so I was just, I own that part. Okay, so here's what really happened. So the question was, what's a tornado in the ocean,
A cyclone,
or
whirlpool.
or a water spout, right? Those 3 things.
I've never heard water spout once in my
I've
life.
heard water spout, but I've heard water spout over fresh water and cyclone over salt water, although I don't know what's correct. I honestly don't. I have no idea.
I think they accepted both.
Sure.
Okay.
She was like, I know this. Confidently wrote it. It was like, I don't even need to talk to you about it.
What'd she write down?
She put hurricane.
Oh, well, here's what's wild. She's not entirely wrong because hurricanes also have an eye of the storm like a tornado.
Yeah.
Like, she is actually correct. Like, that is technically accurate.
Well, Paige, what are you bringing to this conversation?
Yeah. Hurricanes are 300 miles wide. Tornadoes are 30
But that's
feet.
only mostly because of the way that they form over water. Like she's really not that, like, I get why they marked it incorrectly, but she's not crazy
She's
wrong.
in the ballpark for sure.
She's in the ballpark for
so
sure.
I was just like, what are you bringing to this trivia table? Don't even know the weather questions. And it was just like, bad.
Yeah, that was probably the worst thing to say in that moment.
Yeah, no, that was not good. I would have been fucking pissed because I would have been like, that was close.
Yeah.
And like would not have really put up with people fucking with me about it for the rest of the night. I would not have been
It
happy.
sounds like she didn't buy a page. So you gonna see her again, Mikey? Like, what's the deal?
No.
Oh, no, we're going to be friends. I was like, well, let's just be regular friends and we can practice trivia if you want to get better at it. So we're going to go do trivia next week.
She's gonna go with you to trivia next week?
Yeah.
I admire her bravery. Do you guys want to get into this movie so we can talk about it scene by scene?
Yes.
Let's do it.
All right. So we open in 1989, and it's an interview video with who we will find out is Christina Eames, photographer, who is the mother of the main character of this movie. And she says in this interview, they ask her, like, are you glad you came to New York? Yes. Do you miss Louisiana? Only the good parts. What do you like about New York? She's like, well, I like my work. And then you hear a child laughing. And she says, I like being a mother, but I wish I was as good at love as I am at working. And I'm sorry I leave people behind so often.
Yeah.
Which will kind of become the coda for this film, really.
I feel like that is like the theme of her story, which we
Yes.
will get over the 80s love story, right?
This is a moment
Right.
where you're like, ask like a friend like how their day is going. And they're like, well, I just found out. some very terrible news and you're like, oh, I didn't mean for this question to go this deep. I was just like wanting to go to the coffee machine and come back.
You're like, hey, Josh, how are you? And he's like, my aunt's got type 1 diabetes and I don't know how she's going to handle it. You're like, whoa, what the fuck is happening right now? Yeah.
They found a spot on my CT scan and I'm like, oh.
Is it like benign? You just like don't know what to say in that moment?
Because I need to get benign you and get to the coffee maker.
But we cut immediately from that to modern day, where Lakeith Stanfield is driving along like a swamp road past a destroyed harbor, and he shows up at a house where we meet Isaac for the first time. And this is when Isaac invites him into the kitchen to give him some boiled crab, to sit down and answer questions. And he basically starts recording immediately, and they start talking about a point. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it correctly. But the place in Louisiana they're from, Point La Hatch.
I think that's it. Yeah. I mean, that's as close as I'd be able to get. So, yeah.
Great.
Apologies if we said it wrong. It probably is. It's probably way more French, but we did our best.
Probably.
Yeah.
But they were impacted by both Katrina and the BP oil spill.
Yeah.
And then before that, Isaac talks about having worked for Gulf Oil. And he talks about being a third generation fisher, but spent some time in the military, and kind of describes his life on the water. He's been there his entire life. He has seen it go through ebbs and flows. And he basically says that they really destroyed us with that oil spill. That really was kind of the nail in the coffin of this community.
Yeah.
And he takes him through his house, and he takes him through a series of photos on the mantle. And he's like, you know, this is my wife. These are some people. And these are some photos taken by this woman named Christina. And this is a picture of her. And it's the one of her at the table playing cards. And he says she took these photos. She moved to New York because she was a photographer. And Lakeith Stanfield is like, does she have more photos like this of the area, like for this article?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm sure she does, but I'm not in contact with her. You know, I let her leave, and I should have chased her, basically.
Yeah.
And the comment that he makes is, I don't recommend getting older because you've got less people to talk to and more time to go over every regret.
Yeah. I really love Isaac in this movie.
He's a great character. Yeah.
Yeah, like both iterations, like young and old Isaac, I think both the guys who play him do an amazing job. And I feel like even though I know logically they are two different people playing that character, they feel like the same person, right? You know?
Yeah.
So they just do a great job. And his character is
do.
so like, he's like the Ryan Gosling of the movie, you know? Like,
Yeah. In a way, if Rachel McAdams never came back,
yeah, exactly.
that version of Ryan Gosling, I guess.
Yeah.
We cut to New York, and it's Issa Rae in one of the coolest coats I've ever seen. And she is opening a safe deposit box where there's a letter from her mom and then a blank envelope and a note that says, please read your letter first, share the second letter with your father.
Yeah.
And it just says with your father. Now, we will later meet, and the movie doesn't immediately tell us their relationship, but we'll meet her stepfather and then kind of come back around to who her actual father is, or her biological father, I should say.
I thought that's why she wrote father and not dad, because she calls him dad like almost immediately. And when that scene ended and she hadn't given him the letter, I was like, oh, that's not her biological dad.
It could also be because every character talked to each other like 1800s people where they're like, hello, father.
Hello, father. I thought it was because she comments multiple times through the movie that it takes her a long time to get through the whole letter, that she struggles to read it and she's only reading portions at a time, which for me was why we took so long to get to where we got to, because during the storm, she's only on like the second page.
Yeah.
So like, and she tells people like, I've been trying to get through it, and even tells Courtney B. Vance at one point, she's like, I haven't finished it.
Yeah, she's like, my mom's just like the worst writer, man. It's so fucking
On
boring.
and on.
Wrap it up, boo-hoo. I wanted to take photos.
Weren't you being paid by the word, Charles Dickens? Like, come on now.
I wanted to love you, but the New York art scene was so cool. Sorry.
It was so fucking great.
Your real dad was boring and wanted to raise a loving family.
Okay, but how loving would that family be if she was there in Louisiana and constantly miserable?
You mean like her mom?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm
Yeah.
like, if she had stayed, it would not have been better because she would have been miserable.
I don't know. According to May, she wasn't that great in New York either.
I don't know that she planned or wanted to be a mother.
Well, I don't know if she wanted to or not. They never say either way, but I definitely think it wasn't in her plan to get pregnant when she did.
Yes. And I think that's going to impact sometimes how you feel about it. Some people take to it and they love it, and other people, maybe that was never what they wanted in the first place. That's not, I mean, you still have to treat people nicely for sure, but there's a part of me that's like, I kind of get it if it wasn't for you, because it doesn't seem like she was overtly neglectful. She just maybe
No.
was cold.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Like,
say. I don't think she was necessarily
Yeah.
like a bad mom. I just think she was sort of distant. You know, like emotionally, she
Yeah.
kept people at arm's length, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I do think she cared for her daughter. Like, I think she loved May in her way. And I think that's why we get the story we get. But yeah, like, I'm glad we didn't get the full note read as VO, because I think that would have been very boring.
Yes.
And I honestly love the scenes that play out for us.
Well, and I think there's also an element that we see and we haven't gotten to it yet, but in the background, the 80s love story of some generational trauma.
Oh,
where
yeah.
I think her mother is very cold as well. Like, her mom also doesn't tell her she has cancer. She just dies, you
Yeah.
know, or whatever. So, like, I think some of these are learned patterns as well. And so I can't really indict her all that much in this movie, I would say. There, a lot of it, I'm like, yeah, I get that.
I mean, she's sort of a badass. Like, she gets on a fucking bus and
Yeah,
goes
she
from
does.
New Orleans to New York and, like, makes herself a famous photographer.
Yeah.
That's so difficult. Like,
Yep.
that's crazy.
As a single mother, by
Yeah,
the way.
she's a badass, but like, she is not a badass mom. You know, she is very good at one thing, and that keeps her from being good, I think, at others.
Not everyone is.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
I think everyone has, at least again, at our age, I think we are at the age where we start to look at our parents like people and less like parents. And I think that that's what she does over the course of this movie.
No,
Yeah,
there is
that's
a
okay.
tinge of I'm kind of a bitch, aren't I? Energy to this whole thing where the whole time she's like, you know what? I think I put too much thing into work and I'm not a great mom while she's being interviewed while the kid's still a kid. And like,
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's immediately fixable.
it's infuriating to name your flaws and not work on them if you know they are affecting other
You
people.
don't know that she didn't. We don't get to see any of that portion of the movie.
I think we can pretty much logically figure out she did not work on them throughout the movie.
But all May even says about her is that I wish she had paid more attention to me than work. Great. That's like 50% of kids on Earth.
Or she was never there. She said she was never there.
Yeah, she was a single parent for most of her life. Yeah. When my mom was a single parent, I rarely saw my mom too.
Yeah.
There's being physically there and there's being emotionally there. I mean, I was raised by a single parent. I get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that's not what May's talking about.
No, she's talking about how she was emotionally distant throughout her childhood. Yeah.
And then if the mom is admitting all of this in interviews while May's a child, that is annoying to me.
Because she actually never tried to do anything to like better her.
Yes.
I understand
But
that.
we also
yeah.
don't know that she didn't try. She could have tried and not been successful.
She should have put that in the letter then, I guess.
I think that's what the letter is for. I think
That's
the
a-
letter is her trying.
There is a thing called too little, too late.
I think the letter is too little too late.
Yes.
Because, Mikey, I feel like she died before she saw herself dying. Like, she dies of cancer at a pretty young age, I think.
Yeah, well, and she also says in the letter she waited too long to get it checked out, and by the time she found
Yeah.
out, it was too late.
Yeah, and I think that by the time it's too late, she also realizes it's too late to repair any sort of relationship with her daughter. And I bet throughout, like, oh, I'll just fix this later. I'll fix this later is what she was saying to herself throughout the career. And then realized, oh shit, there is no later. I am living out the last days of my life. I have to
Right.
make it right in the ways that are available to me with my few remaining days or weeks or whatever. And that's why she wrote the
Right.
letter. But I do think it's too little too late to actually repair the relationship and have a good relationship. Like, if that had happened to me and that was one of my parents, I would forever be devastated for realizing that they
Sure.
could have been capable of change and they didn't go about seeking that out so that we could have a real relationship. I would be devastated.
I guess. I mean, maybe just as someone who, like, if I suddenly had a baby, would not be happy about it.
No, I completely get that. Yeah.
Like, I kind of understand maybe being like, fuck, this was not the plan. I wouldn't be, like, outwardly mean, and I would try my best, but, like, not everyone's cut out for it.
Yeah, but I don't think you'd be bad at it.
Yeah, but, like, some people don't want to do it. And some people aren't cut out for it. And it's the fucking 80s. And I think she has the kid because she misses Isaac.
Well, I mean, we don't see that, but that logically sort of makes some sense to me.
I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm just saying, like, you know, I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just saying I understand as a person how this happens.
And at that time in America, you could you could have an abortion. So that was an option. I mean, it still is an option in a lot of states, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she could have terminated the pregnancy if she chose to do that.
If she could have
didn't.
afforded it, which we don't know.
That is also true. And she was, at that point, an assistant.
And she was seeing Courtney B. Vance, and Courtney B. Vance maybe influenced that decision a bit.
Sure, but we don't know that. I honestly would have liked to have gotten more of Courtney B. Vance's time in the movie. But when at the end of the movie, when Courtney B. Vance reveals sort of just through dialogue that he knew that he obviously he wasn't the father, but he knew that who the father was, and like
he knew the whole time.
Yeah, it made me honestly glad that the mother was at least able to share that with him, so she wasn't alone in that, you know. But we don't get any of their story, and honestly, that probably would have destroyed the pacing of this movie if we did. But
well, I mean, and if we still had the modern story, I mean, if you take the modern story out, then you've got a lot more time.
Yeah,
and room, I guess, in it. Anyway, so she also has a picture in the safe deposit box, the same one that is in Isaac's house. Yeah.
And that's the moment I called this entire movie, and it's 7 minutes and 40 seconds in.
Yeah, they do not hide it well.
I honestly didn't care, though. I was fine to go along on the journey. I just didn't love the modern day romance part of it.
That's kind of my thing is like, if we know this early, your audience is smart.
Yeah.
They know this early. Go ahead and proceed as if the characters are figuring it out too. Like, you know, we don't need to spend another, because from this point in the movie, it's 40 minutes or more until she acknowledges it on screen.
Yes.
So like we didn't need to spend that much time. We could have like cut to her reading to the end of the letter and she's in Louisiana to figure stuff out. Like, that's how fast this movie could jump through. And then we're reliving her mom's story at the time, like as she's going to these places.
What if she shows up while Lakeith Stanfield is doing the first interview with the dad and like oversees,
that's
like not
what
oversees
I
it, but
thought
like
was going to happen based on the synopsis of the movie. And I was kind of upset that that's not what happened.
Because closing up that's probably like 20 minutes of story that we don't really need at the beginning.
Yep.
You could have done so much more stuff with the modern day romance to make it more romantic.
Right. So anyway, we do get, this is the first mini clip that we get as she's reading the letter of her and Isaac. And it's while May, Issa Rae's character, is trying to kind of pack up her office / apartment, which by the way, that apartment was the tits. That was a beautiful apartment.
Yes, it was.
Nice.
Gorgeous. But we cut to Lakeith Stanfield's office. And this is also where we first meet the intern Andy that he is kind of friends with. But he stops into Chelsea Peretti's office and reveals that he was supposed to see a girlfriend when he was in Louisiana and didn't, and now they are broken up. So he gives Andy a job to look up Christina Eames, who is the photographer. We cut to the Queen's Museum where Issa Rae works, where he is now shown up to kind of view the collection they have of Christina's work for the article. And he like immediately is just like, Christina who? Who are you then? Like, let's, you know, wheeling and dealing. Even though I think he already knows it's her daughter, he's just like, oh no, forget the photos. So what are you up to later?
Yeah.
Which I think for me would ring a little disrespectful personally, especially if my mom had just died.
I mean, literally just died, guys. And he's like, so what that mouth do? Like, what?
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
It doesn't take a therapist to get a good read that she didn't like her mom that much.
So he was like, all right, complex grief, currently going through it. This is going to be easy. How are you today?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's still, I don't know.
Oh, you think it's real shitty for someone to manipulate someone who's going through immense grief to sleep with them?
I do.
Yeah, that's a wild take, Paige. I can't believe you think that's bad.
I can't believe
I don't
it.
know.
Oh my
I think
God.
grief's an emotion, and I didn't see grief on screen in this film.
That's true. You did not.
You really don't.
She had about as much emotion if they were my photographs.
I'd say the one place you see grief is in the bus depot.
Yeah.
When the mom is like mourning the end of that relationship.
It's the 80s. Like, it's the 80s love story really fucking works, man. I mean, I really honestly think you should see this movie because that story is so good.
That one works.
This
yeah.
scene could literally be like, your mom's photos were cool. She's dead, huh? Do you want to get a drink and maybe like hook up or whatever? She'd be like, yeah, I'm
That
not
is what
really
happens.
sad. So yes.
Your mom's dead. You want to fuck about it? Like, that's sort of the vibe.
She says no initially, by the way, especially because she's like, I'll call you, and then doesn't call him.
Yeah.
But she says that she was very independent. She wasn't great about staying with anyone. And I think maybe she just was not into marriage in general and whatever. And we'll find out later that it was probably that she just loved Isaac the whole time.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? But he takes this as like, oh, so like, you know, I'm kind of mobile myself or whatever. Like, what are you doing later? And she's just like, I'll call you, and doesn't.
Yeah.
But this is where you find out she's been an assistant curator for 2 years. He's been at his magazine for 4 years because they have very movie jobs.
Yes, they do.
And he looks through the photos and recognizes Isaac. And he's like, I know that guy. I've seen these photos. And he's like, did you know him? Because your mom knew him. And she's like, I don't know. We went once as a kid, but like, I don't remember that.
Yeah, she probably wouldn't. She was real young.
Yeah. But after she's like, I'll call you, she goes back to reading her mom's letter. And we cut back to Louisiana in 1984. And this is where we start to see the early stages of her and Isaac's relationship.
Yeah.
Where she wants to go out to New Orleans. She wants to do fun things. There's another girl that's like hanging around the dock that she's like, she likes you. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And he's just content with where he is and with his life being what it is. Or at least at the time, that's what he wants. And she clearly doesn't. And it's okay for them to want different things, but it means that they're probably not going to end up together, which is kind of rough.
Well, and that's exactly what happens, Paige. I mean, he clearly just wanted to get married, and she clearly wanted to have a career in photography, and they both get what they wanted.
Yes, exactly.
I think they realize it maybe at different times, but I think what they really wanted was each other, and they thought they wanted marriage and a career. And at least I think for Isaac, he realizes he didn't want just to be married. He wanted to marry her.
Yeah.
And I think for her, she really did want a career. I don't think she looked back on Isaac as like, I should have stayed. I think she looked at Isaac as, God, I wish he had come with me. You know?
If Isaac would have just gave her her own shrimp boat, none of this would have ever happened.
That would have solved everything.
Shrimp
No.
scampi, jumbo shrimp, fried shrimp.
But I think if Isaac had been like, let's move to New Orleans first, I think maybe she would have done that, and then they would have gradually made their way to New York, or she would have lived in New Orleans or stuff. I think there's other ways it could have played out, but I think you're right, Todd. I think he wants to be married, and specifically eventually learns he wants to be married to her, not just married in general.
Well.
But she wants a career.
Like all good rom-coms, if they would have had some more conversations about it instead of just running away to New York and being like, I'm going to end this relationship and move because I want this so badly. What do you want to do?
She says it pretty plainly
She
at one
really
point,
does
Mikey.
in the
She
kitchen,
really
Paige.
does.
I agree.
Yes, yeah. I get that she didn't say goodbye. That's
Yes.
not fair. That she is in the wrong.
Yes.
But she very plainly tells him what she wants and where she wants to go, and that she is thinking of going there. And he knows that her mom is kicking her out. So, like,
Thinking of going is much different than saying, I'm going to end this relationship and move to New York.
I think I sort of understand your problem, Mikey, and I think I agree with my version of your problem, and tell me if I'm right. They have one conversation about it, it doesn't go well, and there isn't another conversation about it after he's processed it, or, you know, she's given him some time to think. She just leaves, right?
She just goes.
And that is a problem. And Paige even said she doesn't say goodbye.
Yeah,
That is a problem.
Yeah, of course.
But man, I feel like at the end of this movie, you really see how like Isaac's decision not to go with her, like really hollowed him out as a person.
It haunted him for the rest of his life.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think we get that from the mom, from May's mom. I think she would have chosen the career over Isaac again.
Yep.
I just think she wished Isaac would have come with him.
Yep.
And me too. Like if this movie was just the 80s love story and Isaac goes with them at the end, I would have been like, fucking love this movie, Paige. How come whenever you pick a movie that you've never seen, it's always a banger? And whenever I do it, it's fucking Emma.
Anyway, we see her come home after a date with Isaac.
Yeah.
And this is where I think some of those behaviors are baked in from her mom, because her mom is just like, you shouldn't hang out with him. He doesn't have any fucking money.
Yeah.
So fuck him.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to say, because this is the 80s, her mom probably grew up in the 60s.
Oh, for sure.
There is definitely a generational trauma aspect to someone feeling like, as a woman in society, they do not have the capability to potentially always provide for themselves, not because they're not capable, but because society is preventing them from doing so.
I mean, she grew up in a time when she couldn't, as a woman, have a credit card, you know?
Hey, this scene is taking place less than 10 years after women are allowed to have credit cards.
Right.
So while it is very cold for her mother to be like, fuck that guy, he has no money, I understand where her mom is coming from. I'm not saying she's right, but I understand why she has that point of view. And I think that and her attitudes around that shape a little bit of what Christina's attitudes become. Because at a certain point, Christina does prioritize her career over him, in part being like, if he can't, I will. Does that make sense? Which is, again, not great. Definitely room for therapy there. But like, I think that plays into it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we cut to, this is Courtney Vance and May, Issa Rae, talking about her growing up. And this is where she's like, she was always working. I'm glad you were there because you became kind of that go-between parent. And she basically says, well, what if I'm just like her? Like, I seem to have these troubles too.
Yeah.
Maybe I am like her. And he's like, no, but did you read the letter? And this is where she's like, I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah.
Because I think Courtney B. Vance totally knows what's at the end of that letter.
She's like, my mom never taught me to read.
That's what school is for.
I mean, she's a museum assistant curator. She can read.
I'm pretty sure she can read.
Yeah, she can figure it out.
I think Courtney B. Vance already knows what's going to be in those letters because we find out later that he told her to write them.
Yeah.
Or at least was with her when it was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he says, finish the letter. Then come back and talk to me about what kind of person she was, air quotes.
More or less, I'll see you in an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, in this movie.
Of runtime.
But he says, and I think this is something the movie doesn't outwardly say, but I think it is, she needs to go from seeing her mom as a parent to seeing her as a person.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what Courtney B. Vance is getting at here, where he's like, she was just a woman with flaws. Like, hey, everybody got some. She just had these specific ones that were unfortunate.
Yeah.
So we cut to Michael, Lakeith Stanfield, showing up at his brother's house, Lil Rel Howery, aka Kyle. And this is where we find out about the job interview in London. And he has to go through telling them that he and Tessa broke up.
Yeah.
But this is also where they're like, you never date anyone for longer than 3 months. You have some commitment issues, maybe therapy. And he's like, oh, I already met this other girl. And they're like, really? Like, dude.
I mean, he had just called him out on like, hey, man, you jump around real fast. And he's like, oh, hey, about that. And I just jumped around again. And he's like, really?
Jump up and get down. Yeah.
I do love Lil Rel. He's so good in this movie. He is, I think, what Kevin Hart was in 2012 in this movie. And he does it just as well. Like, I love him in this movie. And I love him as a TSA agent and Get Out, too. Like,
yeah, TS motherfucking A. Yes.
Like the scene when he is sitting down on the couch with his wife and they're just bullshitting, you know, Lakeith Stanfield and Issa Rae are just like bullshitting on the couch. I don't think any of that shit was scripted. I think they were just having a fucking conversation.
And I loved it.
And it was just like
The most emotion in the film. Yes, I remember the scene.
yeah, Lil Rel, just make them laugh and we'll just film you making them laugh for 5 minutes and that'll be that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we cut back to him working on the article and he's re-listening to the tapes from Isaac, which he does a couple different times in the movie.
Yeah.
But he replays this one section where he says, what would you have done differently? And Isaac says, I would have gone after her. And so then he asks Andy, do you want to go see a movie? Because they're going to go see a movie at the museum.
Yeah, he's setting himself up on a blind date. It's just that,
Right.
you know, May doesn't know that she's the subject of said blind date. It's actually a blind double date, it turns out, but he doesn't know that going into it.
He doesn't know.
Lakeith doesn't know, yeah.
It honestly, She takes it better than I would have. I would maybe not have been as excited about this.
You mean when some guy you met once just randomly showed up at this thing you mentioned you might be at?
Yep.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
That's pretty troublesome.
I think the difference is she's into him, so she's like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I need to sort this out a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But so she's prepping for this, movie presentation, kind of sees him in the crowd. And she's there with her friend Rachel, played by Jasmine Cephas Jones, who's barely in this movie, but is great in pretty much everything she's in.
I was going to say she is critically underutilized in this film.
Critically
Yeah.
underutilized in this film.
Because she is great in it.
Yeah. So they end up watching the movie a couple seats away. They don't get to sit together. And afterward, he kind of sends Andy and she sends Rachel. So they go off to a bar. And then they have a love story off screen that we never see, but that just comes back at the end of the movie. And then he and Issa Rae end up going for drinks. And their conversation over drinks is really supposed to be their kind of meet cute chemistry. We're into each other. This is why this is so important in this movie. And it's just not. It's just really not.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You don't find yourself rooting for them. You don't see a sparkle. It's just not there, which is kind of frustrating.
I do think some of that is the way the scenes are written. There's not much sexy time chemistry. So when they finally do have sex, they have sex on their second date, but there isn't a lot of chemistry at that. Yeah, you can tell how fast I move. They don't have a lot of chemistry because the scenes that they were on dates in are not super romantic.
Yeah. Well, and I think of compare it to, any rom-coms or whatever, but you only get the one scene of them in the restaurant, right? And so I think about even in something While You Were Sleeping, even when there's kind of a butt heads antagonist vibe, which is kind of how this starts out, there's this kind of cute push and pull with it.
Don't take that to trivia, though.
No, don't take that to trivia, Mikey. No.
But here we basically just get them stating facts and opinions with a little, tit for tat on the opinions, but it's not them connecting and finding shared ground. It's just them kind of talking.
I mean, are you talking about the scene of them arguing about who's their favorite rapper?
Yeah, and this is where we find out his favorite is Kendrick Lamar and hers is Drake. Bad decision, but whatever.
I mean, this is not the only bad decision she makes in this movie, Paige.
Truth.
But
Truth.
I do like this scene and this tiffed part of the date because it sets up the gesture at the end. The problem with this is that's the only part of the date we get. So in this date that should be one of those nights where you talk all night and it's a romantic thing. Sort of like we get in Crazy Stupid Love with Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
Not to bring him up again from a different movie, but I feel like that's a better version of this because they do have moments in that are sexy and moments in that are funny. And I feel like we only get the tift in this scene and nothing else. So there's nothing romantic.
Right.
They're just arguing about their favorite rapper.
Right. Well, and here's what I would have settled for, if that makes sense, of
if she had like Logic instead of Drake.
No.
Okay.
I mean, Kendrick is the right choice, but I
thought Lakeith Stanfield was going to go for Paperboy.
Oh yeah, how could you not?
Come on.
Paperboy. Every day it's Paperboy. But I would have settled for just a little more conversation on a couple different topics and them going to different locations.
Yes.
So that it seems like more time has passed and it has been this night of them figuring it out, even though we're only getting the same amount of time on screen, but that time is better utilized.
Yes.
Because
I was going to say, you can do that in a minute and a half of extra time, still have that fight, and then they're like, let's get out of here. Then you see them a montage of them eating pizza on the street in New York or whatever, and then
any
talking
montage,
by the river
any
or
montage.
whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
You can even do it in one location, and I already know you're going to make fun of me for this example, but it is an example that works from a filmmaking perspective.
I cannot wait.
Fuck. The date in Fresh, before we find out.
Like the sell-by date in Fresh?
No, when they're in the bar and she does the cherries thing.
Yeah.
And this is before we know how evil he is.
Well, because they move from the bar itself to a booth, right?
To
and
a booth.
That suggests a passage of time, right?
Right?
Yeah.
The camera, the way that they do it in that scene is they track how many cherries are in the jar.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
the jar gets lower, drinks get lower, and then every time we see them, it's a different topic. Like there is an easy way to do that. And in that scene, they have a ton of chemistry. It really makes it work. I think some smaller changes like that in this scene would have really helped
Yeah.
the whole rest of it.
Paige, I'll say this about that analogy. It's fucking perfect. Fresh is a
Thank you.
rom-com until 40 minutes into the movie.
I know. Yes.
So like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
works 100% because that's like 10 minutes into the movie.
That yeah, it's like 10 minutes into the movie.
And honestly, that dude eats ass.
He does indeed. But
does.
like as a bolognese.
A lot of bolognese.
He's like, what are you bringing to this dish?
What do you bring into the table?
Yeah, Mikey.
All that ass and no forks.
Man, they're not all winners.
No. Anyway, so they have this date, and she at the end of it is like, he's like, just be yourself, and she's like, I don't know who that is. And I was like, that's a very big problem
Yeah.
that we should probably solve.
Huge red flag. If someone tells you that on a first date or second
Yeah.
or whatever we're considering this at this point.
I consider this first. This
Yes.
is first
I
date.
think it's still the first, honestly. Yeah, Paige, I agree. Yeah. I think what she says there sets up what she says next, which is, do we have our own personalities or are we just playing off of ourselves? I really feel like the
Right.
screenwriter just wanted to get to Lakeith Stanfield's line. That's why it's so important who we surround ourselves with.
Right.
And that's why he wrote it this way, where she's like having that stance. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I do like what happens next where he says, I was wondering if it was too early in the date to kiss you, which is
Yeah.
a great way to ask for kiss consent.
It is.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Nothing wrong with asking for consent.
Nothing. And then we cut to like the next day where she is talking to Rachel, criminally underused in this film. And she's like, it felt like we'd kissed before and he called me right after. Like it made me feel kind of special.
Yeah.
And in this scene, Rachel is just like, nothing happened. I went home, but we will find out that indeed she and Andy.
I think she looks a little guilty, though. Like, I think she sort of plays it really well and telegraphs it a touch. You know what I'm
Little
saying?
Guilty.
Yeah. I think
Yes.
she hooked up with the intern and just didn't want to let her friend know that she's.
Good for you, girl.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And honestly, all you do in that situation when you're like, hey, that dude you pawned me off on, we hooked up last night. That wouldn't make me look down on you. I would just high five you.
I'd be like,
and then be
"Hell
like,
yeah.
spill the tea, baby.
Tell me everything.
Yeah.
So we cut to Lakeith Stanfield goes to talk to Lil Rel, and he's like, no, she's awesome. And he's like, excuse you, like Tessa was awesome, but you didn't have to see her every day. And that's why you made it work.
Yeah.
And like, so we cut to the past where Christina is getting ready to go out and her mom catches her on the way out and is like, where are you going? And she's like, New Orleans with my friends and Isaac. We're spending the night. And she basically is like, what are you going to do with your life? You can't just take pictures. You can't just be a photographer. That's not going to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And he can't take care of you. Get the fuck out of my house. Basically, like she says to her, you're too old to live with me, which made me assume that she was like 19, 20, something like that.
That's exactly the age I got to. Yeah. Had graduated
Yeah.
high school, hadn't quite found her career yet, but was like, I want
Right.
to make photography my thing. But like that is a hard thing to like get paid
It
for.
is.
So
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But her mom is basically like, when you get back, start looking for your own place.
yeah.
Side note, love her butter dish in the background. If you watch this movie, look for it. Anyway, so she goes out, she gets in the car. They go to this really cool jazz club house party kind of thing.
It was dope.
Which is very cool.
It was.
And he asks her to marry him a couple times, and she says, I'm not ready.
She's got things she wants to do first. Yeah.
Yeah.
He moves a bit quick.
Yeah, I think so too,
Well,
Mikey.
I think there's also, within the older story, I think there's an implication that they have been friends for a long time and romantically
Oh, I get that.
inclined for a while.
Yeah, I get that. I get
They're
that.
just young, and I think she's like, I don't want to get married young. I have things to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the impression that he was like 23, 24 at that point.
I think they could be the same age, maybe a year or two. I mean, 24 doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
1980.
This is 85, I think, at this point in the
Yeah,
story.
1985, 23 is like today's 47.
Yeah. Hey, my parents got married in 82 and they were 20 and 23 respectively.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
So it would have been right around that age of your parents. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so they have a romantic night together that's very super hot.
Yeah.
Good job. And we cut to her waking up the next morning, seemingly very, very happy with this night they have had out in New Orleans and what this could be, which I think will kind of cause the conversation later because she wants him to come with her. That is what she wants.
Yes.
So we cut to Issa Rae reading the letter, and again, still hasn't finished it. She's only on like second or third page. But she texts Lakeith Stanfield to be like, hey, can you come over and help me with this thing? And there is a storm outside.
Yeah, it's the hurricane.
Yeah.
Everybody guy likes that text.
Oh, come over during the hurricane?
Yeah.
Help me with this thing.
Help me with this thing. So he goes to her mom's apartment and they gather a few boxes and make their way back to her place.
Yeah. Not before stealing that Al Green album, though.
That Al Green album. And as I was watching this, I remembered that I went to school with a girl who's like Al Green's niece or some shit.
What?
Alice Turquoise.
She married out of the green name. That's the, yeah. Yeah.
She married Blue, a blue guy. So that she's
Blue?
turquoise.
Yeah.
You guys get it?
Yeah.
The color wheel joke.
So they make their way to her apartment and he puts on the Al Green. They kind of dance, or she dances. They talk a little bit.
Yeah, and he like shoots her down to dance with her. Like, these are the moments where I was like, that's where we needed the sexy stuff.
needed
like
the
we needed them to
dancing.
get close and dance and like be like very close to each other's faces and feel the passion. And he's like, stop dancing. It's weird or whatever. I'm like, what are you doing?
Not only that, the conversation we get is a very strange choice.
Yes.
Because he tells her about a previous relationship where he was with someone much older.
Yeah.
And then like talks about it and details it for a while. And then she starts dancing and then they don't talk about anything else. They don't dance together.
Yeah.
And then until she like comes back over and kind of has her head down, like listening to the music. And he's like, why do you have your head down like you're praying? And she's like, I might need to. And he was like, what would you pray for? Willpower. And I'm like, really? Like, I mean, sure. Like, he's very good looking. I get
Sure,
it. But
yeah.
like,
you just feel the sexual tension as he tells him that he was groomed as a 21-year-old by a married 45-year-old.
Yeah.
She's like, man, I've never been more turned on to hear about your trauma.
Well, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is clearly, they're about to bang it out because it's the storm, like, obviously, but it doesn't seem like there's enough chemistry to make that happen.
There was a split second where I was like, he fucked her mom.
Mikey.
Because the tone is very serious. And then she's like trying to seduce him. And then he's like, I need to tell you about a relationship I had with an older woman. I was like, it's her mom.
I think that's why he was so drawn to the photo originally.
And then I was like, what?
This is sort of like Age of Adeline right now. Hang on.
It's a little more graduate than Age of Adeline.
Yeah, because this mom died.
Yeah, but like, how bonkers would that have made this movie? I was
thought it was
screaming
going
in my
that
living
way.
room.
And I was like, no.
What if I'm just like my mom?
I know. He's like, I'm counting on it.
Oh no! Stop it, young Gravy! Stop!
I thought he was going to go back and re-interview the guy and be like, hey, I just realized something. I had sex with your long-lost love, and I get it.
It's just two dudes who understand.
But that's the tone of the scene. I
It
thought
is.
we were going into some serious, because he's like, no, don't dance with me. I got to tell you about something. And I was like,
That actually would make sense because it's so weird that he's like, don't dance. Especially when the scene ends where it ends. Like, if he had gotten up and danced and then she was like looking down and he was like, why are you looking down? And that whole conversation about praying for willpower happened and they had sex, that would have been sexy and made sense.
Not to bring it up again, but do you remember the second date in Fresh?
I've watched that movie once, Paige. I don't jerk off to it.
Whatever. He turns on music and is like, let's dance, and gets her up to dance, and they goofy dance together.
Yes.
That's the second date.
Yeah.
Like, that's how he talks her into like going away with him for the weekend, because chemistry. That's what I needed. Just a little bit of dancing.
Yeah.
Just him dancing with her. That's all I needed to help me fix this.
You're right, Paige. If the modern storyline in this movie was a lot more like Fresh, I would have liked it.
Here for it. Here for it.
Honestly, though, the first 40 minutes of Fresh are like romantic. Like it's great.
They are a functional romantic comedy.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, like, it is dancing. It is proof that dancing works to generate chemistry and physical proximity within a film.
Yes. And she did sleep with him the second night in Fresh.
She slept with him on the first date. First
Ooh, that's
date.
right. I mean, it's
Ooh.
Sebastian Stan. I get it.
It's Lakeith Stanfield. Like, come on, dance with. Like,
I mean-
what? You think he can't pull a Sebastian Stan? He fully can.
are we at the sex scene on this one yet?
It's about to happen.
Yeah.
I have thoughts.
Okay, let's dive into it because we do get a surprisingly long sex scene with 3 repeat shots in it.
Yes.
My favorite position is when a girl just sits on me and doesn't move.
And stares and just stares into your eyes.
It's called the staring contest, where you just.
Yeah, this is real hot, right?
Whoever
was a
comes
weird-
first
It
loses.
was weird. I was like, is he having weird sex because he slept with her mother but can't tell her? I was like, what's happening?
Mikey.
Mikey, I have a very quick, strange question for you. Would you,
No.
if you had slept with her mom?
Oh God, no.
100%.
Yes!
No,
100%.
Mikey, no.
Thank you.
Paige, you
Thank you,
gotta
Mikey.
do it for the story. Like, my letter to my kid when I'm on my deathbed is gonna be so much more fun for me to write than I wish I had more energy to spend the time with you. It would have been like, one time I slept with a mom and then her daughter, but they were very old, well, like nice age. They were very good. It was a good experience.
It was age appropriate, everybody. Calm down. Yeah.
But I did it so you didn't have to, son. It was just okay. You can skip that one.
She just sat on me and stared.
Yeah.
It was very strange.
The mom
very
was much
strange.
better.
The only there's one exception for me on this, and it involves a time machine where I get to go back in time to the 80s to bang 80s Kurt Russell, and then in modern times I somehow rope Wyatt Russell into some sort of questionable scenario, but like I'd feel weird about it still.
I do think Paige has worked out the most ethical use of time machinery, and I'm here for
No,
Thank
I
you.
don't think
Yeah.
so
Thank you.
about that. I mean,
it. Mikey, you know you'd go bone Cleopatra if she was down, right?
That's a very strange choice, but okay.
I think we've talked about this. I would go to the Civil War with submachine guns and rob the Confederate gold, and
Time
get away
Cop,
with
Time
it. Yeah,
Cop
like just
style.
like Time Cop. Yeah.
Just like Time Cop.
But in conclusion, yeah, I'd try that out.
In conclusion, they have a very not that upsetting, just interestingly choreographed sex scene
Yeah.
in this film.
It's not interesting. It's weird as shit.
What sex scene would you rather watch? This or The Room?
Yeah, I would rather watch The Room. There was more chemistry there.
Oh, hi,
Wrong.
May.
They look like they're having a psychic conversation with each other, but we don't get the voiceover in this film.
Oh my God, that is exactly what it looks like. He's like, did you? And she's like, no.
They're just like, and I'm like, what are they trying to say with their eyes?
What Lakeith Stanfield's trying to say is, I think I fucked your mom. And what she's thinking is like, this dude's great.
Here's the thing. In this sex scene, there are count them three shots of just Lakeith Stanfield's pecs and abs. And I was like, first of all, thank you. Secondly, is this the same shot? Like three
It
different
is.
times? Like, I'm not mad at it at all. But what? Like, what are we doing? But the staring, the psychic conversation. I also noticed that, Mikey. I was like, what is it? What?
They're
Because she
very
also wasn't
attractive.
moving. She's just like staring. And
He is inside of her, and they just stop and stare. No one's done. Well, as far as I know.
Mikey, do you think one of them farted and they're like trying not to acknowledge it? They're like,
No, no, it really is like the psychic battles from that South Park episode where they're like,
I think they were trying to do, like, Outlander does this all the fucking time, where like they're just like looking into each other's eyes while they're having sex, and it's supposed to be this like eye contact thing.
but they're actually
not.
having
They're
sex in that moment. Yeah.
I know.
you could have had them just stare at each other naked in bed smiling, and it would have made a lot more fucking sense than what I got there.
What if she's like Dr. Manhattaning his dick and you just can't see it? She's like telekinetic, just like
I would be talking if that was happening. I'd
Super
be like,
kegels.
oh, okay.
I think what she's psychically trying to say to him is, it's okay, it happens to a lot of guys.
Or it's just, what I really want is just a shot of her face and then just the soundtrack of Milli Vanilli's Blame It on the Rain.
That's the thing. You could put so many different soundtracks on this scene and have wildly different outcomes of what the scene is about.
Yeah.
Blame it on the
I was like, I get it, you guys.
rain.
You're trying to make a drama. This is too dramatic, you know?
Sorry. Just thinking, I'm picturing it.
I'm sorry.
You are not alone, Mikey. Mikey, you were not alone. I was watching it and I was like, what the fucking what?
I was like, I hope no one loved this movie when we record because I just felt weird the whole time watching it. And
I love the 1980s portions. Modern ones, not so much.
just put it in. Okay, now stare at me. Don't move. Just stare at me.
Nearly at the station. Sorry.
Well, to the point where, like, because she kind of, like, falls off next to him, you know, in the bed, and they kind of look at each other, and I'm like, did they finish? Like, I don't know.
I think they're just hugging.
Yeah, just like friends. But then the power goes out.
Yeah.
And an alarm goes off.
Yeah, the bad sex alarm.
Oh,
Evacuate.
That alarm was telling her she needs to get as far away from him as possible.
Your Uber is outside.
Do not make this man a quesadilla.
I've got to plug my Alexa back in and have like have a great night. And that's like the keyword of I've called your Uber. It'll be arriving in 20 minutes with like the Star Trek red alert sound effects. Yeah. You heard the sound. It's time to go. It's red alert.
Anyway, they get in a taxi and they go to Lil Rel's house.
Yeah, because it's further uptown, further away from where the
Yeah.
hurricane's going to landfall.
I mean, I think we can safely say that no hurricanes landed in that apartment that
no.
night. But unless she was the eyes of the storm, just like,
There was no storm in anyone's pants that day.
Now, her apartment was the driest place in all of New York.
cloudy with a chance of blue balls. Yeah. Mhm.
I'd rather have no sex than just like stick it in and stare at somebody.
You mean soak? That's what they're doing.
That's what they did.
They are
Yeah.
soaking in this movie, Mikey.
No. Anyway, they go to his brother's house, and this is where she gets to meet the nieces. But this is also where they send the kids to bed. Although the kids tell her about Tessa, the other girlfriend, which is going to come up in a little bit.
They do. And I do like that they actually communicated about it this night. And he's honest with her. And yeah, I liked that.
Yeah. But they spend some time with his brother and his wife, Asia.
Yeah.
And they're hilarious.
I loved them.
They're so much fun. They clearly have a good time together. They laugh at each other. They laugh at, apparently he wore a top hat the day of their wedding, and they will never let him forget it.
I love how he's
so
like,
good.
He's like, I mean, you do stuff like this. You're like one of the smartest people I know, but you do dumb shit sometimes. And he was like, I look good. And he was like, man, the kids were asking you to pull a rabbit out your hat. Like, this shit was so funny to me.
So they end up going to bed. She can't sleep, so she gets up to read the rest of the letter, or more of the letter, I should say. So we cut to the past, where Christina is playing solitaire on that table, and Isaac comes over, and this is where he takes that picture. That is the one that ends up in a couple different places.
Yeah.
But this is where she says, don't you want more than this? And he's like, no, I want you. I want to be married to you. And she's like, I'm not ready. And he says, what more do you want? And she says, I want people to admire my photographs. I don't want my greatest accomplishment to just be cooking your dinner. I want to move to New York. And he says, I don't know how to make you happy. I can't see myself in New York. And she says, I can't stay here. And he says, then where does that leave us? Which for me is pretty clear. I mean, she definitely should have said goodbye.
Yes.
Well, I think she should have answered the question, where does that leave us?
Well, we don't know, the movie cuts away, but like it's assumed that they don't answer that question because he's mad that she never says goodbye.
Yeah.
At least he learned how to cook boiled crabs.
He should thank her for leaving so that he could learn about the crabs.
So unhealthy.
Terrible.
They all just stare at each other.
But so she develops that photo that he took, and then she gets on a bus to New York because she's leaving on that midnight bus to New York.
I really did like that he's the one that took that photo that started this whole thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was sweet.
That's very sad. And on the bus, she's initially sad to be leaving, and then the further the bus gets away, the happier she gets.
Yeah. She's chasing that dream, man.
Yes. So we cut back to modern day, and Michael wakes up and she's reading, and he's like, do you want to go outside? It stopped raining. And they kind of walk through the streets after the hurricane. Nobody's out. It's kind of
So much emotion. They said
quiet.
the street is quiet. It's almost like it's our street all alone. And they're like, yes, it is. It is our street.
Yes.
What an interesting observation you've made, Lakeith. Now tell me about your ex-girlfriend.
Right. And we find out that it was long distance and that's part of why they broke up,
Yeah.
which doesn't bode well for the rest of this movie.
Well, no, because he, at this point, has applied and it seems like maybe interviewed for a job in London, but doesn't know if he's getting it or not.
Right.
He's in limbo about the job.
He's planning to move away from New York City.
That's a second Matt Berry reference. My Nearly at the Station was also a Matt Berry reference.
Nearly
And
at
I
the
should have given
station.
him credit for it, but yeah.
Yep. So he's like, I didn't feel like I need to tell you about it because she and I aren't together and I'm with you now. And I'm like, okay. But like people do talk about their exes.
Yes. I mean, I will admit that this is their second date, and maybe
Sure.
they're not to the, hey, what has your previous dating history been like? Like that kind of
Right.
conversation. But yeah, I do think knowing what she knows, she should ask about it.
Do you guys remember the date with the girl who was raised in the cult where she asked me a lot of intense, like really intense questions, like what my political affiliation and like all of that stuff was?
I understand her asking those questions, but yes.
Especially based on where we live, yes.
I went to the same place for dinner with like two friends, like a friend this week, and the bartender was like, "Hey, you're back," because I have I have a gift card. This is like a way inside story. I have like a weirdly large gift card to that restaurant, and so I used it on the date, and then I brought it back again and like paid for like friends dinner because and she's like, "Hey, it's you with that weird date." I was like, she's like, "Are y'all still dating?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "She was very pretty though," and I was like, "Did you hear the conversation?" She's like, "Yeah, that's why I like came by a lot because it was very weird."
Is this the bartender?
Yeah.
Was she cute? You should ask her out. That sounds like an amazing meet cute for a movie right there.
That's the best part of working in the service industry is eavesdropping on other
It
people's
is.
conversations. It really is. My favorite one was the time a guy shot off his foot. Go ahead.
Mikey, you should go out with that bartender. You should ask her out.
We'll see. Still got a little bit more on that gift card.
Michelson, you have to go back to that bar by yourself when she's working and be like, yeah, I had to finish out the gift card. But also, it's a chance to see you again.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I'd be like, what do you bring to the trivia table?
old fashions, that's what you ordered, dumbass.
Cut to 3 hours later, she's sitting on top of Mikey staring into his soul.
What do they call an underwater tornado?
I like eye contact during sex. I just like also the sex during the eye contact.
Yeah, the sex is part of it. Yeah.
It's part of it.
It's like Thomas
Part
S.
of
Pumpkins.
David S. Pumpkins fucking fuck.
Whatever.
Thomas is his brother.
In what 1982 sci-fi horror film does
The
Kurt
Thing.
Russell star
I
in?
knew it was the thing when you said 82 because you had just talked about how you wanted to go bone young Kurt Russell.
I'm just thinking of trivia questions to ask into somebody's face during sex, but then also keep a scoreboard next to the bed. Yeah. What is the acronym for SCUBA?
Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Let's go! Mikey, you should take me to trivia.
We would have a killer trivia. We should go play trivia in Kansas City.
We should. I'm down
I
to play
would
trivia in Kansas
100%
City.
do that.
Yeah.
I'll fucking clean up.
And then Paige and I could be like, Mikey, what do you bring to this trivia, you dumb
Old
motherfucker?
fashions that we ordered at the bar.
I just want to know. I want you to know I blame my dating problems on you two.
Why?
Hold on, I'll get there. We friendly jab each other all the time, and it's hard to like shut that down.
No, it's not.
In other situations,
No, it's called being nice to someone you want to sleep with.
I actively have to make sure I turn off roast mode in those situations.
Yeah.
Although Jake and I have been laughing all day about he went to Target today and some lady in front of him just randomly started talking about how much she hated this book that he was reading and loved. and he was like, I didn't really know what to say. And I was like, you should have been like, hey, bitch. He was like, yeah, no, I don't think that would have gone fine in Target.
No, it wouldn't have gone well. I would have been, if I was Sam, I probably would have been like, yeah, it's not for stupid people, so I get it.
Well, apparently her partner walked up and was just like, oh, I loved it. And so he was just like, maybe you're the problem then,
Yeah.
lady who doesn't like it.
Well, he was reading a Playboy. Sorry.
Erotic boob photography for dummies. Yeah, you know.
I
not
mean,
for
he was just trying
everybody.
to see some of the work that May's mom was doing during
Yeah.
the late, early 90s and late 90s.
he
I keep
saw it.
setting the camera timer before her shirt is off. Yeah, you know.
Rookie mistakes.
Rookie
I've got 2 modes, man. I got like therapy mode and podcast mode. I don't got an in-between mode.
You 100% should be in therapy mode on a first date. Asking a lot of open-ended questions, a lot of active listening, and just gathering ammo like Bartiz so you can show your ass.
when you get paid for it, you don't give it away for free.
Then, Mikey, you're never going to get it for free, all right? If you treat all your first dates like you treat us, it's going to end badly. And you treat us like you treat like a good close friend. You can't treat someone you don't know like that.
Now, here's the thing. 3rd, 4th, additional dates.
Oh,
when you know people better, then you dial it back up.
Oh, the only thing I learned is trivia is like a 4th or 5th date now, not a first 2. We're going to play darts or some shit like that.
Honestly, yes, though. Anything that gets that competitive, put it later in the dates.
I have a bit of a competitive streak when it comes to like board game, but there's a lot of people who do when it comes to like games and sports and people have a competitive streak.
Here's my thing. The activities that I usually recommend for 1st and 2nd dates are bowling and mini golf because they're things that very few people are legitimately good at.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be kind of bad, and you can play like you're competitive, but everyone's kind of losing. And so it kind of works out and it doesn't hurt people's feelings.
It's good tips.
I always took them rock climbing.
Also, and I've told this during Christmas Mikey times, my family is like very competitive trivia wise. Like we have a biannual, like very competitive Trivial Pursuit game that lasts like 3.5 hours each time, or like we'll play like 2 or 3 games of it. And it's like, and it doesn't end until like 3 of us have ganged up on one of the family members and they've cried and left the table.
And you think that sort of behavior is appropriate on a 2nd date?
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
if you don't like me at my making fun of your fucking stupid face, then you don't deserve me ever.
I'm not bringing you home unless you're helping me bring home the trophy.
Mikey shows up to trivia wearing a shirt that says, "I don't date no stupids."
She was not stupid. She's like in like way high in finance. And I was like, I hope we get a fucking finance question.
You won't. There's never finance questions in trivia. But I will say my family doesn't do trivia as much. That we love playing games where you have to like, you give like somebody 4 words and you have to make a sentence out of it and stuff. And then you're literally competing to be the funniest, which is super fun. Or we go ham on fucking dominoes and just trash talk each other the entire time. To the point where like my sister and I were neck and neck through 12 rounds of dominoes the last time I was home, just like talking shit the whole time.
Yeah, that's how it is. That's how.
And I fucking won. What's up? Undefeated domino queen. Let's
Boom.
Go. I'm not even good at math. What?
Practice is what happens when you do it for real. So like if you play trivia like that all the time, if you go play trivia, you go hard. It's just instinct at that point. And that's on me. I own that.
Todd.
Yeah.
Mikey, look over there. Todd.
Yeah.
When we go play trivia in Kansas City, let's lose on purpose.
Oh my God.
You sandbagging motherfucker, Paige. You sandbagging us?
And then we'll go back to the Airbnb and I will just like wreck everybody at Domino's. Domino's and categories. I'm just like an undefeated monster.
Paige, I don't know how to play dominoes. Will you teach me?
Yes, let's play Domino's. I love Domino's.
Paige, I am very much against the sandbagging plan, but I can be bought with Slaps Barbecue. So.
Yes. Can we just eat there every day?
Yes. You mean like we did last year, Paige?
We did it 2 days in a row and I have no regrets.
Paige, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give Todd COVID.
Great.
So we can have time together to learn dominoes with Jake.
Well, you really need more than 2 people. We kind of need everybody so we could play.
We'll meet some people down there.
What?
You want to play dominoes with Mikey and Paige back at our Airbnb?
No, Todd, no.
Mikey, what
That's
are
where my
you saying?
clothes
We'll
are.
meet people down there.
We met Paige down there.
Hey, I don't know if you know this, but my podcast is watching you from the other side of the bar, and you have this like
And
cool
we
vibe.
like your vibe.
Do you want to play dominoes with us back at our Airbnb? This is
got a
definitely
vibe.
not going to turn into a weird orgy.
That's literally how we started this podcast. We started this podcast just like that. What do you mean we're going to be people down there like Armando and Paige?
You know, I don't know if Mondo plays dominoes or not. I feel like he does. I feel like Mondo and I might fuck up some dominoes.
Mondo's got some domino energy to him, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
are we
yeah.
we might meet another podcast, a nice podcast down there. We don't know.
Anyway, they have the whole street to themselves, not playing dominoes or having human interactions. But they talk about the ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
He finally tells her about London.
Yeah.
And she's like, why London? And he's like, well, I felt like I needed to change. And she's like, and you want to change right now? Like, should we just, why'd we fuck then? Like, what's happening?
He said, I see London. I see France.
I saw your mommy's underpants.
Like, yeah.
I think you're right, Mikey.
They were too scared to go through with that storyline. They should have done it.
Yeah, agree. I think the reason she was just staring at him in their sex scene is because he just said, your mom didn't do it like that.
She's like, he looks familiar. Like a guy who came around our house when I was about 23.
No, in the background, there's just like a dick pic her mom took, and she's like, oh, wait.
Oh, no.
Why would she have a framed dick pic that her mother got sent
'Cause
years
it's
ago?
New York art.
No, like her mom took a picture of it. 'Cause she was a
That's very
photographer.
Fleabag page. I love it. I'm here for that.
It is. I just recently rewatched Fleabag because I ran out of other stuff to watch for a bit. And I had gotten to the point where the stepmom is painting a portrait of them and keeps making Fleabag turn around because she only wants to paint her from the back.
Yeah.
Like her face doesn't even get to be in it. Oh, man.
It's a wonderful
Great
show. Yeah.
Wonderful show. Also, new party down. Very pleased. Anyway, so we cut to back in the day, 1980s, where her mom is applying for her job as an assistant. And that loft will become her photo loft. But I assume she inherits it from the guy that she's applying with at this point. And he's like, why should I hire somebody who's just like fresh off the bus? And she's like, because I'm talented. And he's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll work harder than any of those other girls and I won't leave you for somebody who's just going to get married. I want this because I want to do this.
Yeah.
This is not just a job for me.
Yeah. I'm not here because my dad got me the interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she gets the job. We see her tiny apartment with a very cute kitchen. And she calls home. And this is when she finds out her mom died and he got married. Isaac got married.
We don't find out he's married yet. She doesn't find out on the phone.
that's
it's
true.
so much
Yeah.
worse, man. Because literally the next scene is her at, I thought
The
it was
funeral.
like, yeah, like the funeral, right? Or at least like a visitation. Like,
Right.
But either way, it's like her and that friend, right, from earlier
Right.
that they went to New Orleans together. And she's like, I'm going to go see Isaac. And you can tell there's some information that she doesn't have, that her friend doesn't necessarily want to give her, but has to give her. And that's that he got married. She's only been gone 3 months and he's already married.
Yeah. And she said, he's angrier than I thought because he didn't even come to the funeral. And they're like, no, girl, he married that other girl that hung around the docks.
Yeah.
And she drives over to the docks and sees the two of them getting out of the truck. And so she goes back to New York.
Doesn't see him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think had he not gotten married, she would have come back and been like, I'm pregnant. Will you please come to New York with me?
Please come to
and
New
I
York
think
with me.
Isaac would have, but you know,
Yeah.
he was already married.
It's sad.
It is really sad.
You just got to tell people these things.
Yeah. Because people don't wait for you if you don't get, like.
Yeah, and he deserved an informed decision to like divorce
did.
and leave.
Oh, yes. I think had she shown up and been like, hey, I'm pregnant, he would have been like, listen, I forget the new girl's name, but new girl.
Ashley.
Ashley, I
Prentice.
can't do this. I love her. She's
Oh,
going to
100%.
have our child. I have to be with her. And I think
Yeah.
as sad as that would have been, they both would have been much happier throughout the course of their life.
Yeah. Here's the other thing too, because it's in the past and there's no cell phones, that's why it took so long. That's what creates
Yeah.
this time where things kind of get out of sync.
Yeah.
So we cut to a couple years further in the future and she's in the loft. And this is the first time we see May at work with her in the loft.
She's just sitting there by herself while her mom takes photos. It's sort of a sad shot, I think. But her mom's honestly just working, you know?
Yeah.
And figuring out how to be a single mom, which I sort of get. But I think it's shot in a way that makes it seem sad.
But she's not a single mom. She's with what's his face.
Courtney B. Vance.
Oh, I guess that's true, but you don't see him in this scene. But yeah.
I think he's the one playing with May and we don't see him. I think he's off screen.
Okay.
But May seems to be kind of playing. I think he's either there Or he's off working and May is.
Just alone. I thought that's why she was at the photo loft.
Yeah.
Because she had to bring her to work, and she could do that because it's not like they're capturing video. Sound doesn't matter. So, like,
Right.
if the kid's playing or even, like, making noise or whatever, it doesn't matter.
My hairstylist used to bring her kids all the time.
Sure, yeah.
It was super normal. Anyway, so we cut to, they come back to Louisiana. They go to her mom's house. And this is one of those things that makes me think like we are missing parts of the story. And I do think her mom was cold and maybe not great at being a mom.
Yeah.
But I don't think she was like malicious or anything, because we do get this shot of like, she sets up the stock pot so they can take a photo together.
Yeah.
Like, clearly she cares about her,
Yeah,
or whatever.
I just think she's a little distant. I don't think she's very open with her feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she's a bad mom.
Yeah. Isaac drives up and she's like, I sold the house. And he's like, yeah, well, it only took you 4 years. And that's the point at which I was like, see, I suspected that May was his kid this whole time.
Yeah.
But now I'm mathing the math, and May is definitely his kid.
Oh, you mean because that kid is clearly 3 years and 3 months old, and he's like, I haven't
Yes.
seen you for four years.
Yep. And he takes them to the bus station.
Yeah, man.
But she's like, don't get out. Like, just drop us off.
And they show us a lot of that ride, and they are just sitting in silence. And man, May's mom is like not saying anything, but saying so much with her face. Like, it's
Yes.
just acted like the young Isaac and May's mom in this scene do such a good job, even though they're not talking, because when they get there, he goes to get out and she's like, don't get out.
Yeah.
But she leans over May to kiss him on the cheek. And it's like, it's not just like a pop kiss on the cheek. It's like
Yeah.
I want to kiss you a different way kind of a kiss. And then she gets out and goes and sobs in the bus station.
Yeah.
It's so
Oh, it's so sad.
I was weeping at this moment.
Yeah. And we cut to Isaac's house modern day.
Yeah.
And this is the one where, Mikey, I am fully with you. The emotions in this scene, questionable.
Yeah.
Because May shows up and Isaac is like, can I help you? And she's like, I'm May Morton. I'm Christina Eames' daughter. And he's like, is she here? And she's like, no, she passed away. Now, we do see in his face, you see him get very, very sad and
Yeah.
almost cry.
Yeah.
And then come back from it.
Yeah.
But that's the only time, because like, he's like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. When? And she was like, about a month ago. And she left me this envelope to give you. Now, at this point, I feel like once she says, I'm her daughter, and I have a thing for you, an envelope for you, I feel like he has to be like, because you're my daughter? Like,
I think he knows before reading it, but then reading it is confirmation
Yeah.
of it. But yeah, no, I think he knew already, honestly, Paige.
yeah. And this is where he's like, I should have just asked.
Yeah.
You're just like, what? What a strange reaction.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even gonna hug her? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't see them hug. Like, I would
No.
absolutely want a hug from this person that is my father, who I can now have a real relationship with.
And you know that, like, because she stays there for
Yeah.
a while with him in that house. So I would assume that they're like, okay, we're going to try and have a relationship.
Yeah.
And, like, eat boiled crab every day or whatever.
She asked Lakeith Stanfield to like move there. She's like, we should move
Yeah.
here or come back or whatever.
Or come
so
back
she
or
clearly
something.
wants to pursue a relationship with her dad, like to
Yes,
get to know
absolutely.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. And who should show up but Lakeith Stanfield? And it's like probably a few days later,
Yeah.
I would say, or a few weeks later. We don't know how long she's there.
I got a few days, but who knows? It doesn't really say.
Who knows? But we cut to him in his office and he basically tells his boss, I got the job. And she's like, congratulations, but I hope it doesn't work out.
Hey,
He's
that's
like,
too
"Well,
much. That's too much emotion. He said, "Hey, I got the job," and then she goes, "Oh well, I hope it doesn't work out." And it's like,
And it's Chelsea
Well,
Peretti too,
It's Chelsea Peretti, yeah.
who is like normally over the top and really good at doing
all
that.
of these people are usually good at all of this acting business.
But it's another case of like, Chelsea Peretti is hilarious and is given little to nothing to do in this movie.
I bet they toned her down. I bet they were like, hey, can you
Yeah.
tone it down? Because I bet her playing it down is still bigger than what she was in this movie.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Well, it's even like the friend Rachel, who's been gone for an hour of this movie and is about to come back in just a little bit. She was in fucking Hamilton And she's in Blind Spotting, the movie and the TV show, and is amazing.
Yeah.
And she has like 4 lines in this movie, and you're
Yeah.
like, they have more chemistry as friends than like anybody. Anyway, underutilizing some of their smaller characters as well.
Absolutely. I mean, she was one of the Schuler sisters. Like,
Yeah.
she's a Broadway star, Paige. Like, yeah.
Yes,
And we
I
see her
know.
twice in this fucking movie.
Twice in the movie.
Yeah. Underutilized
Twice
for sure.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
Just twice in the movie.
absolutely.
We cut to him because he still owes them the article on Isaac, and he's like listening to the tapes on Christina and how he's like, Isaac is like, I should have gone back for her.
Yeah.
And May is calling him and he just doesn't answer.
And we know what May is going through, like discovering her father and like getting to know him and all this stuff. And he's just like, I'm good. He doesn't know any of that, but it makes it seem like he's a shitty dude to us, the viewer, because we're jumping from her like discovering all this shit and calling him. And he's just like, nah, we had sex once. It's fine.
I wouldn't call it sex.
We soaked
We had a
once.
staring contest once. It's fine. I won though. Anyway,
I didn't pull out until it had wrinkles.
so
That's how, that's how soaked it was.
Oh. We cut to, he goes to talk to his brother, and his brother's like, so you're going to say goodbye to that girl, right? And he's like, I don't know. Like, man, maybe not.
Which is an insane thing to say when we're supposed to feel emotional in 30 minutes when they are together at the end of this movie.
Yes,
And like
yes.
literally, he's like, nah, I probably won't.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So he drives back to Louisiana, shows up at Isaac's house. She's there. And instead of being like, what the fuck, asshole? I'm going through this whole thing. I just found out this guy's my father,
Yes.
the guy you were interviewing. And you're just like, here, you can't pick up a damn phone. Like that. And then even when later, and like the same night, when he reveals the whole London part,
Yeah.
the fact that she's not like, what the fuck? Because she does say, she's like,
Right.
we had all day and you didn't say this to me, but I'm just like, why didn't you pick up the phone?
And then later where she's like, I should have said something.
No.
I was like, what? These people are bananas.
I think what she was referring to is when they actually have the conversation about London, she says everything the opposite of what she wished she had said. So I think when she says I should have said something, she's talking about that specific moment.
It's not the opposite. They say nothing. They literally say nothing, which is not the opposite.
Oh no, he says I'm going, and she says then go then, more or less.
Yeah,
like, they say
basically.
quite a bit in that moment.
Well, and she says, she's like, I didn't feel like I could ask him to rearrange his life. And I'm like, that's fair. And if you don't want to be in a long distance relationship, that's also fair.
Yeah.
Like, you probably shouldn't be together. You've only been on like 3 dates. Like, don't worry about it.
I absolutely don't think they should be together long term.
Yeah.
I think they should be with someone they actually want to have sex with and not just soak.
Now just stare at.
Well, and then his motivations are not great either. Why do you want to go to London? I feel it.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
why
I
do you want to
just-
go to London?
I want to change.
Because it's London. It's cool.
Hey, London is really cool.
I know,
have
I love
been-
London.
He doesn't talk like that, Paige. He's like telling his brother, I'm going to London. And his brother's like, will you miss me? I will miss you. Yes. Why are you going? London could be
Fucking love fish and chips, dog. I need
No.
to get my hands on some potatoes.
it's way more emotion. He just says, I want to go.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could never be this man's friend because I would always ask for more specifics and that would drive him crazy. I want to go to London. Why? I just need a change. A change from what?
What are the next 3 words in that? Like, well, I need
Yeah.
more than I just want to change. You're moving
Yeah.
literally to a different country that's 5 time zones away. Let's have a bigger conversation about this.
Yeah, I feel like the conversation should be like, I've enjoyed my time at my job, but I feel like I'm not really challenged there anymore. And I think moving to London, it's a really great opportunity with Associated Press. It could challenge me more. I'd live in a different place. I think that's exciting.
It's better for my career or whatever. We don't get any real reasons except for
Yeah.
like, I just really dig UK's vibes.
I do though. I
It's
mean,
like,
like
whenever anyone on Perfect Match is describing why they want to be with Francesca and they know they can't say because she's hot.
I can't fucking deal with when that other guy with the fucking ponytail was like,
Will?
surprise French. Yeah, I want to be with you. And I was like, what?
And then she was like, let's talk about this though. She's like, I'll see you on the outside. I was like, she's gonna fuck him 100%.
When
Yeah.
she's like, I want always an open relationship. Don't fucking talk to any other women. I was like, this is bad. Like, bro, that's not good.
That's not an open relationship. That's just her cheating on you while you don't get to even look at anybody else.
And the guy she said that to, Damien, the next day was like, yeah, I think we're like really getting close emotionally. And I was like, she's getting close to emotionally abusing you. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, watch Perfect Match. It's amazing.
My favorite is like at certain points in the finale, she's like, people think I'm mean, but like they just don't get it. I was
No,
like,
we get it. That's the problem.
you are mean.
You and Bartiz belong together.
Yeah, we can't. We'll have to do another bonus to recap the finale.
Yeah, let me get through it. I'm going to text y'all tonight.
Okay.
Well, we just got to finish this movie up and I can get to it.
Yeah.
Anyway. So they decide to go to New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of retrace Christina's steps.
Yeah.
They even go back to her house. They see her dark room. They go to the same dance club. And at that club is when he's like, by the way, I'm moving to London. And she's just like, we have been going to my mom's places all day. Like, this is an emotional day.
He's like, also, I've been in your mom's place.
no.
I've been in your mom's place, probably.
I've looked into her eyes, if you know what I mean.
I left something in her dark room.
No.
I was very afraid when they go into the dark room in like the modern day situation because it looks very Shaq-esque. And I was like, please don't have sex. Please don't have sex. Because if they do, there's no way Mikey's not going to bring up the time I had Shaq sex on First Avenue.
Hold on.
Shaq
I've got
sex, baby.
I was so close. I was like 3 blocks away today and I almost went for it, but it was like rush hour. I didn't want to go over there.
I am not at all afraid you're going to take a picture of that place because A, you're too lazy, and B, it's still proof that I got laid somewhere. So like, I don't care.
I need to see the pictures.
It honestly looked a lot like the inside of this building that they were in, except it was smaller. It was more intimate.
So paintbrushes for tactile play. Anyway, when they get to the dark room, they kind of make out for a little bit. And I'm like, why? Like, he just didn't call you in like a super emotional thing. Like, why? I don't understand.
He has been ghosting you all week and would have been continuing to if you weren't magically at the place he showed up at.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, they get in an argument. He leaves. We cut to the next day. She is at Isaac's house and Isaac is like, why didn't you leave with him? And she's like, it's complicated. And he's like, yeah, okay. That sounds I feel like I kind of understand this kind of situation. You read the letters. And he says, look, I don't blame her for leaving. She was unwavering in what she wanted. She said that's what she wanted to do. She did it.
Yeah.
I'm upset that she kept you from me for so long, and her letter does apologize. But at the same time, like, I understand what she did. It's a long time ago. I kind of forgive her at this point.
Yeah.
But maybe you have a chance to do something different. And then we get like the last portion of the letter in voiceover that's basically like, I chose pictures instead of people. It was the only way I could love. And it's her basically apologizing.
Yeah.
But we cut, and this is where we see her crying in the bus station. So sad.
Brutal. Yeah, the mom, May's mother, crying in the bus station.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then we cut to May and Courtney B. Vance talking about it. And Courtney B. Vance is like, oh, I've known the whole time.
Yeah, she made me promise not to tell you. And honestly, like I said before, that made me so happy that she, the mom, was at least able to open up to Courtney B. Vance about it, who she was married to and I think honestly deserved to know. But also, it's nice to know that the mother had some support in carrying that weight.
Anyway, he tells her that A, he promised not to tell, but B, he met her mom when she was 3 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And her mom turned him down at first and was just like, hey, I'm still kind of in love with somebody else, like, whatever.
Because of the timing of it, I got the impression that Courtney B. Vance met May's mother right before she went back for her mother's funeral. And then when she got back from the funeral, she was like, well, that door is closed with Isaac. And maybe there was an attraction with Courtney B. Vance. I may as well explore that. And she does.
Yeah.
But she was honest with him, obviously, because she was maybe not even showing at that point, but was pregnant. And he was still super into it. And there's no way she would have had to have told him, obviously, you know.
I get it.
Mikey, I know you got it. When I was like watching this movie and I realized when he came into the story, I was like, that's a Mikey move. That's like a real good guy move. You know what I'm saying? That's such a Mikey move.
Yeah. But this is also where he tells her the story of like, hey, when you went off to college, and she's like, yeah, and she didn't even come. And he was like, oh, she stayed home crying. She was devastated. Like, you did not have all the information, basically. And she's like, oh. And he's like, she was bad at goodbyes and bad at communication.
Who's
What's
lazy now,
happening?
you bitch?
You found this photo online, Mikey. But I'll say this. That photo looks way better than it looked when I was in there.
I've got to get a normal one.
Good. Hold on. I'm pulling. I didn't have the chat up because I was concentrating
I
on
did
making
a Facebook group
podcast.
post romancing the pod.
Yeah. And I am right now confirming that this is, in fact, the shack.
Oh my god. Oh my god, Todd.
Yep. There's no coincidence that there's a baby stroller in this photo page.
Todd. It doesn't even have a whole roof, Todd.
No, it does.
What's in the center that looks caved in with ivy? Oh, is there two shacks?
Oh, yeah, those are two different shacks, Paige. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a bush in between two different shacks. Although, surprisingly enough, there wasn't a bush in that shack that night.
Oh, boo. Free the bush. So we cut to, she's going over all the old photos and negatives for her mom's retrospective. And this is where Rachel pops back in to be like, going out to dinner with Andy. And I'm like, I want to see your love story. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, she looks happy.
Yeah. Anyway, this is where Issa Rae's like, I think I fucked things up. You didn't. He's the one who didn't call you and didn't tell you he was going to London. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we watched the videotape of her mom, and it's the same interview as before, but it's her basically saying, like, I wish I didn't leave so many people behind. I wish I'd been more open about my feelings. And we cut over to his office where we find out that Andy's not an intern anymore.
Which, I don't think we mentioned it, but when Lakeith got promoted, or not promoted, but
Yeah.
took the job that was sort of a promotion, but he's leaving the magazine he's at to go to the AP London, he asked if they could make, I think his name's Peter, the intern.
Andy.
He's like, Andy, thank you. He asked, can we make Andy the intern? Can you sort of give him my slot?
Right.
And Chelsea Peretti was like, absolutely not. I hate you. Don't leave me. But she does. I really get the vibe that she's a really good boss and really loves him, but she doesn't know how to show it.
Right.
Just like everyone in this movie, they are unable to show their love for each other.
Yes.
Well, what you guys didn't know is that this movie takes place on the planet Vulcan.
They just like take off a hat and reveal the ears.
Everyone's been wearing beanies the whole film. I thought that you were going to say that Chelsea Peretti also had sex with May's mother.
No. But good for them if that's what happened. Anyway, so we see May packing up her mom's apartment. We see him in London where he gets a package, and inside are tickets to see Kendrick Lamar with a note that says, he still makes me feel guilty.
I love that she didn't sign the note because she fucking knew he'd know it was her.
knew
And I
he'd
love
know.
that.
And she only sent him one ticket so he wouldn't ask anybody else.
That's a smart move. I got the impression that it had only been like 2 weeks since they had last spoke.
Yeah.
You know, so it hadn't been like 3 months where he might be dating somebody else, but you know, you still want to like make sure that they aren't, you know?
So he shows up and she's there. So they meet up and he's like, I've been miserable without you. She's like, I've been miserable without you. I don't want to be practical. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wait years to figure it out.
Yeah.
So let's go hear some music.
And that's the movie.
movie.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what did you guys think about the photograph?
Every time I do it makes me laugh. I like the past love story. That one really works for me, but the present one not so much.
It was so self-serious that now my pick for next week is so absolutely bonkers insane.
Hell yes! That makes me happy though. We need some of that change up in our lives. And I love the hyper seriousness of this. Like, I really love the past story, like Paige, we've been sort of saying the whole movie,
the
but or
past
the whole
story is
episode.
great.
But I really feel like the last scene doesn't carry really any weight because
No.
there isn't really much to build them up as a couple in the modern day scenes. So it
Yeah.
just feels like, okay, cool. So you went to go have a fuckcation in the UK and then you guys are not going to be together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A better thing would have been like him saying the whole time, I'm missing something in my life. I need to change. I need to go to London. And then at
But
the end,
you
him
were the
being-
changes I
Yes.
needed.
And then he came back from London to say that to
Yeah.
her. I think that would have been great because then that's Isaac passing on, don't make the same mistakes I did, to Lakeith Stanfield's character.
Yeah, I think
And I feel like he needs some of that too, because Lakeith Stanfield is not like a great dude in this movie.
no. And one of my biggest things is like, I'm way more invested in Isaac and May's relationship. That's what I have way more emotional investment
Honestly,
in, is
same.
a father and daughter finally getting to spend time together.
Yes. No, I completely agree. But I do think the love story in the past is worth watching this movie for. And everyone's good in it. I just don't feel like it's like no one had emotions after 1989 in this movie.
Right.
And that is a little frustrating. I also feel like they wrote their main male lead as sort of a bad guy. Like, not a bad guy, maybe, but he's not really good to the female
Not
lead.
conscientious or caring.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting choice, I would say.
But Paige, you already mentioned you didn't have a lot, if any, fun facts, but let's talk about them. So do you have any fun facts for us?
No, because if you go to look up fun facts for this movie, it's literally Get Out fun facts, where they're just like, all these people were in Get Out. I was like, no, I know. I've seen Get Out. It's phenomenal. It's one of the best horror movies in a long time. But like, what about this movie? And they're just like, oh, that's it.
Well, don't hit us with those fun facts. They're none. Fun facts. Nailed it.
Sorry.
Well, let's talk a little bit about box office then, if you don't mind. So this movie came out in 2020, as you said, Paige. What do you think the budget was for this movie?
Trying to remember 2020. What happened that year?
What was it?
Well, this probably got funded in 2019, but no, when we talk box office, you'll need to think about that because you're right.
Yeah. I'm going to say this was 20 mil in budget.
Mikey, what you think?
I'm going to say 15.
Mikey, you're exactly right. It was $15 million on the nose. Now, this movie came out on February 14th, Valentine's Day, which I think is appropriate for what they were going for in this movie.
That's what they were trying for. Yeah, for sure.
It was fourth in the box office that week. It was beat by another like huge, like romantic February Valentine's Day hit. Sonic the Hedgehog was number 1 that week. And then Birds of Prey was number 2. Number 3 was Fantasy Island. Number 4 was obviously The Photograph. And number 5 was another rom-com called Bad Boys for Life. I'm assuming it is. I haven't seen it.
Yes.
Now, what do you think The Photograph brought in its opening weekend?
You know what I saw that night with Molly? We went on a Valentine's Day date that night.
You guys have never romantically dated, right?
We went to the movies, just her and I, and dinner, I think, to see, what's the movie with the wish in the islands?
Fantasy Island.
We saw Fantasy Island that night.
When you had the opportunity to see Birds of Prey and or Sonic the Hedgehog.
And or The Photograph?
First off, I saw Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's amazing.
It's great.
That and Last of Us, 2 best video game things.
Adaptations ever. So, did you get to live out your Fantasy Islands that night with Molly?
No.
That's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
So, what do you think it made in its opening weekend, guys?
Not a lot. I don't remember this movie even having a commercial.
6 million.
Okay.
Nah, I'm going to say 4. I'm going low.
It actually made twice as much as your highest guess. It made $12.1 million in its opening weekend, which is not honestly bad.
Yeah.
For honestly this type of movie, although it is in like the right time period around, Valentine's Day. But for it to make back 12 of its $20 million budget its opening weekend, it's not bad.
Yeah.
The thing that impacted this movie was COVID, obviously, because it was only in the theaters for 5 weeks, and the box office receipts, like for all movies, started dropping off towards the end of February.
Yeah.
Because people stopped going to public places because they were afraid of COVID. And then, of course, everything shut down in like mid-March. And that's when this had its final week, was the week of March 13th. But what do you think it made in the domestic box office in 2020?
I think because it only had those few weeks.
Yeah.
But it made 12.
22?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say 25.
You're both a little high. It made $20.5 million. I do think without COVID, it would have made 25, 30, 35. But because even when it was in theaters, the time, like, it was just crazy. You guys remember, it was crazy. People were like,
yeah, it was crazy.
Even like Republicans who later went crazy were like, maybe we should stay home because we're old, and it's just killing all old people. Anyway.
Yeah.
It also made another $126,000 in the international box office, but it suffered from the same fate as COVID here, right? So it didn't make a lot over there. So it made a total of $20.7 million. So it did make more than its budget back. If you factor in the whole marketing thing of they typically spend about twice the budget on the marketing, it didn't. I can't confirm that. And I don't remember seeing a lot of marketing for this. And a $12 million marketing budget, you'd see the marketing for that.
Yeah, I remember seeing some of it, and I remember people being excited for this movie to come
Yeah.
out because of Issa Rae and Lakeith Stanfield, but then I don't remember hearing about it once it came out.
Yeah, me either. But I mean, we were hearing about COVID this whole time, so it makes
Right.
sense to me that we didn't. But that's your box office. So, Mikey, do you want to hit him with that romance scale?
Yeah, romance scale is a scale of 1 to 10 of how romantic we found the film today. Paige.
I'm going to give the 1980s storyline a 4 and the modern one a 1.
Paige, I was going to give the 1980s storyline a 6 and the modern a 1 for a total of 3 in this movie.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Like for a total of 2 overall in
Yeah.
this movie for me, I guess.
Because the old storyline really works. I realize they're not together, and I don't want the two main modern day story people to be together either by the end of the movie.
Yeah, I don't think they should be.
But man, I just love that old story, the 80s story. It was so good.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 2 overall.
Okay. I think that's
Okay.
fair.
Yeah.
And that's the romance scale. Do you think they're still together?
I do not. I think they are
I do
together
not.
for 4 to 6 months and then they break up because that
I
is
agree.
Lakeith Stansfield long distance like pattern. That's what he does.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think less because you have to really communicate well in a long distance relationship.
That's fair too.
Yeah.
And they're further away than like New York and New Orleans. Like
Yeah.
that's a bigger commitment financially and time wise. But yeah, no, I don't think they're together. So this week, Paige, you made us watch The Photograph. Mikey, what are you going to make us watch next week?
Okay, friends.
Hell yeah.
We shall be watching 2022's Redeeming Love.
Wow.
Wait,
I've
Mikey,
never
is this what I think it
heard
is?
of
Is this what I think it is,
movie.
Michael? I think I know what this is.
Let me read you the synopsis. Sold into prostitution as a child.
Yes, this is
Angel
what I
knows
think it
nothing
is.
but betrayal. Can her heart ever be mended? Based upon the novel by Francine Rivers.
Mikey,
I watched this on
thank
a date.
you.
You watched this on a date? And it starts with child prostitution?
Okay. No, let me tell you a better synopsis because that's very dark. It's okay.
Yes, it is
the movie's
very dark.
It's a Old West, like
Christian
it's a-
rom-com.
It's a Western Christian rom-com.
Yes.
Where she's an Old West working at a saloon as a sex worker, and he loves her so much he convinces her to leave that life.
I can't fucking wait. This sounds amazing.
There is a part in this movie that's about 40 minutes in that is so absolutely.
Did your date laugh at it or did only you laugh at it?
I cried laughing.
Is it when the main character slept with the sex worker's mother?
It's
No.
worse. It's worse.
How is that
could be
possible?
worse.
I can't even tell.
Oh my God.
I can't wait. Well, your homework for next week is to probably watch a very frustrating movie called Redeeming Love. So, Mikey, do you have a review for us to read?
No, I'm still reading about Redeeming Love.
Well, once you're done, while you're reading about Redeeming Love, let me tell them how they can have their review run on the podcast while you pull one up, Mikey. And that is to leave us a 5-star text review, and we'll have Mikey read it for you. So, Mikey, whose review are you going to read this week?
Okay, this one, we've had something, this is pun intended. We've had a review bleed over from horror version.
Oh, no.
Oh.
What happened?
Kiki Star.
Kiki Star? Okay. What does Kiki Star have to say?
Pooping on the floor is comedy gold.
That is a technically Romance in the Pod reference.
After listening to y'all on Horror Virgin and Paige on Cult Podcast, I had to follow RTP.
Okay, yeah.
You three are hilarious and have the best chemistry.
Agreed.
Vampire babies, pooping on the floor. What more could you ask for?
Fuck.
5 stars.
That Blade episode on Horror Virgin, like it was back-to-back weeks. It was you pooping on the floor, and then the Vampire Babies episode of Blade was just, that was a banger week for the throuple.
It was great.
Yeah.
I tried to explain vampires wearing condoms after they turned at work, and it was just like, you lose a lot of context when you're not listening to the podcast.
Well, Kiki Star, thank you so much for that awesome 5-star review. And if you want to have Mikey read your 5-star review, leave us a 5-star review.
There's like 4 new reviews that are like talking about pooping on the floor.
Yeah, that's what happens when you release banger episodes. So, yeah, guys, if you like this power throuple that we have here on this podcast, make sure to check out our other podcast, The Horror Virgin. And that is the only other podcast that Mikey and I are on. But Paige gets around, and she is on 2 other podcasts, Black Card Rehab and Cult Podcast. So guys, definitely check out those because they're amazing. If you want to follow us on social, we are at Romancing the Pod Show
Yes.
on Instagram, and we are at something else on Twitter who I just have never taken the time to learn
It's just Romancing Pod Show because they have a character limit and it's show SHO like Showtime.
So guys, check that out as well. And if you want to follow us all individually, Paige is at Rampage Wesley everywhere, including TikTok, except for Twitter, where she is at Paige Wesley. Mikey is at M Randolph 24, and I am at Todd J Awesome everywhere. And guys, we got a P.O. box. So if you want to send us some love letters or whatever you might send to a P.O. box, it's actually not a P.O. box. It's like a regular street address. It's pretty awesome. It's 6688 Nolensville Road, number 108-34, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027. So send us some stuff.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm Todd.
And you complete us.
To completion.
Stare.
I call it the super stare soaker.
Ugh, I don't like it, especially when we're doing it doggy style.
She got to turn her head all the way around.
I know it's like Exorcist levels.
I'm not opposed to that.
Bye.
Mikey, no.
She's a demon in the sack, Paige.
Mikey's dating the devil's daughter, nerds.